See? Cold. Not much quick. This is one.
From Studio 303, it's the Stranger Than Fiction News right here on the Fringe FM, bringing light to the stories that surround us. Rare fish sighting in Japan sparks precursor to earthquake fears. This is no doubt evidence of a precursor to an earthquake, wrote one Twitter user, following two separate discoveries of oarfish off the north coast of prefecture of Toyama earlier this week. Photos posted on Instagram showed one of the two deep-sea dwellers, which reportedly measured 10.5 and 13 feet respectively. One was found on the shore of Toyama Bay, and the other got caught in a fishing net near the port of Imazu. According to Japanese legend, the fish will purposely race to the surface and beach themselves whenever they believe trouble's on the way. Residents have reported their presence before the arrivals of tsunamis and earthquakes in the past, including the 2011 Fukushima quake. Source, FoxNews.com. And long-lost tales of Merlin and King Arthur have been discovered in mysterious medieval manuscripts. Merlin is one of the key characters in the legend of King Arthur, and experts say that the manuscript fragments contain subtle differences to the traditional Arthurian narrative. The manuscripts were found in the archive of Bristol Central Library in the United Kingdom by Michael Richardson from the University of Bristol. Richardson was hunting for materials for students studying for an MA in medieval studies when he came across the remarkable fragments in the centuries-old books. Source, Fox.com. And unidentified humanoid sightings in Washington state. Out of Olympia, Washington, a man claims he saw 3 unidentified beings. The anonymous man on MUFON said he was driving through a wooded area at night of January 28th when he heard a strange sound and stopped his car to investigate. He's quoted as saying it was gibberish and a loud yell. There were 3 beings. One was in a small triangular ship, one next to the ship and one near a tree to the right, he said, adding that there were also 2 dead deer. He claims that when the entity saw him, he jumped back into his car and drove away. The man says the aliens look different from each other. One was tall reptilian, the one in the craft, and he had a helmet on, he explains. The other one to the right, he said, was a tall gray, and the one next to the craft had a big white-colored head and long neck, and was wearing a blue astronaut suit. He said the humanoid with the astronaut suit appeared to have a smaller being in the back seat. Either a smaller being or human, and it was strapped in. The eyewitness says that he felt it was very real and scary. About a year ago, a man in Washington said that he had seen a predator-like humanoid in the woods. Source, cryptozoologynews.com. And time for this edition's fun fact. There is a church in the Czech Republic that has a chandelier made entirely of human bones. And that wraps it up for another edition of the Stranger Than Fiction News right here on the Fringe FM. I'm Vance Nesbitt, anchor and news sorcerer.
Message is being brought broadcast by the Department of Defense of the Republic. At 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, multiple unidentified objects were confirmed to have entered Earth's atmosphere.
Discovery Houston, 20 seconds to LOS T-drift.
Contact, I am in orbit. The first message that comes to you is you are a divine being. You matter. You count. You come from realms of unimaginable power and light, and you will return to those realms.
The vast stretches of the unknown and the unanswered and the unfinished still far outstrip our collective comprehension.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting from Forest Tower Studios, all the way from the Deep South. Now, here is your host, Joe Root.
Good evening, I'm Joe Roop, and this is Lighting the Void. It is Thursday night, February the 7th on into the 8th. We're actually here in the night of Jupiter heading on into Friday, which is actually the day of Venus. For any of you people that know your astrology, but we are live on KTLK Digital Broadcasting, that is the Fringe FM. Go check us out, grab the app. You can also download that app on the Google Play Store or the iTunes Store, the Fringe FM, and our website is lightingthevoid.com. And tonight we're going to be talking about Jason Lindgren's new movie coming out, which is a Shoot the Moon movie that he has raised a lot of money for. He did really good, and he's going to do this movie, man, and it's going to be epic. I'm telling you guys, I cannot wait to see this thing, because if you know anything about Crow7 Radio show and you know anything about the Lunar Wave, then you know that this is going to be awesome. And we're going to get into some other subjects too. But I wanted to start talking to Jason about that at first. Hey, and if you guys can support us, please do so, because we could really use it right now. But for those of you that have, and I know who you are, I mentioned your names last night, I'll try to give you a shout out again tonight. Thank you guys so much. And make sure you go over to the website, sign up for the newsletter, grab a t-shirt or hat, do whatever you can to support us, give us a review, all that good stuff. If we open the phones up tonight, that call-in number is 1-800-588-0335. You can text into the show at 501-777-5631. And you can also email me, which most of you do. I end up getting emails next day, like I'll wake up. And this is something I'm starting to really look forward to now, is waking up the next day and reading the emails of new listeners, critiques. I don't get a lot of nasty grams anymore, which I'm glad. I'm really thankful for. But I woke up today and I had like 4 or 5 new emails about you just picking up new listeners here or there, and they really love the show and they give good feedback. They give really good feedback, and I really appreciate you guys for doing that. And thank you so much. If you want, you can also go over to Spreaker. There's a chat room over there in Spreaker, but we also have a Discord chat on the Fringe FM. And the easiest way to get into that chat room is if you just go to thefringe.fm/chat, and that'll just give you the Discord invite. Or you can just go over to Spreaker. So we got all kinds of places where you can interact with the show if you want to. And, but I know some of you listening are going to be the podcast listeners, and that's fine with me. Now, Jason Lindgren is here with us, and it's been a long time since I've talked to him. The last time I talked to him, I was doing a Saturday show, and Jason Lindgren is like an awesome audio sound guy. I would call him one of the best. I go to him when I need sound stuff, and so that's something that I haven't figured out. If you haven't noticed listening to the show, the sound is changing, right? We've had shows that don't even sound like this one because the whole time we're trying to figure out, man, I want to get the sound right. And this is the guy I go to. But he's also a filmmaker, and he's going to be making this film called Shoot the Moon, which is all about Crow. And I don't want to get into too much of it. I don't want him to talk about it, because this is going to be one of those epic films I think everybody's going to remember. Thank you so much, Jason, for coming on the program. Jason Lindgren, welcome to Lighting the Void, brother.
Yo, Joe. I consider you a true American hero, buddy.
Yeah. I thank you for that. I guess I'm starting to get this connotation of like I'm just this laid back, cool guy that people can relate to. And I always wanted to be the smart guy that everybody looked up to, you know, like that guy really knows a lot. But as I've done this show, I figured out the more I think I know, the more I really don't. You know what I mean?
That's the way this stuff goes, man. And it's but look at it this way. You do know more than the average ding-dong walking around the street, not to put anyone down. But what you realize, the more you learn, is just how much you just don't know about what's really going on out there. So it's a daily pursuit. It's something that's just always ongoing, and you got to keep your passion up for it to understand. And every time you find that next thing, you're just like, oh my God, you got to be kidding me, really? And then the next day, it's going to be that all over again.
Yeah, for sure. And last night we did a show about chemtrails and 5G with Matt Landman, and I released the YouTube thing today. Like, I put the archives everywhere, and YouTube's like the last thing I make sure I put it up on. And this is why I don't put a lot of stock in YouTube, and I hope they don't get offended about this, but at the bottom of the show, and I put this on Facebook too, they just happened to put their little excerpt of the definition of contrails. I've never seen that happen on any of my videos, but the one time I have Matt Landman on, they said, oh, let's put this little excerpt down there. It's crazy, isn't it?
Well, let's talk about Matt Landman for 2 seconds before I give you a little YouTube info you might not be aware of. Matt Landman is the absolute hardest working activist out there that I know of as far as things like chemtrails and 5G. I mean, the guy's coming out with his own clothing line to help us protect ourselves against the insane radiation they're going to be bombarding us with, which, of course, we're not already getting bombarded horribly, but they're going to up the dosage. The dude is freaking amazing, and I'm so pleased that I can do my little bit to help get him out there even more. So we bring him on every couple of months, really, and I've actually met him a few years ago. A mutual friend had introduced us when I was still doing my solo show, Secrets of Saturn, and great dude. I finally got to meet him in person last year at I'm going to blank on the name of that conference that my girlfriend and I went to.
Was it in Arizona?
Yeah. That was it was for your mind, something like that.
Yeah.
It was and it was a great show. That was, well, I shouldn't call it a show. It was a great time. A lot of good people there. Got to see my buddy Mark Devlin, and I'm kind of rambling.
Mark Devlin does a good show too. He really does. I like Mark Devlin. He does an awesome
Devlin
show.
Is also incredibly great at what he does. I am so proud of him for picking up where Dave McGowan sadly had to leave off. I plug Mark as much as I can because the work that Dave McGowan did with the whole weird scenes inside the canyon, like, people don't realize. And if you want to hear me go off on a little tangent here that Crrow and I have discussed quite a lot, the 1960s, as far as the modern era, was the changeover for everything. About the mid-60s. They were starting a little earlier, but really the mid-60s is where you start seeing the major change for everything. And what happened? They completely divided the older folks from the younger folks. And then by the 1970s, you get a completely drugged out generation. But go back and look, and you'll see just how much the 1960s changed everything. And I could do a whole show just on this for an hour long if we ever wanted to talk about it. But look at the work that Dave McGowan did, and now what Mark Devlin is doing. Fantastic stuff.
Do you guys know when I talk about a lot of stuff on this show, when I listen to Crow7 Radio, I get really humbled listening to you and Crrow and the guests, because I wish I could deliver information the way that you guys do, but you guys really do. You can tell that you put a lot of hard work, research, and effort into that show. And I think it is whatever you guys are going to keep doing. I hope you keep doing it until you can't do it no more, until we all are dead and gone, which is kind of meek. But I hope that Crow777 never goes anywhere, man, because it's one of the best places to go for truth seeking stuff, and I mean that.
I'll put this on the record right now because Crrow and I have had these conversations. I'm a little bit younger than Crrow, not massively, but I am younger, and thank goodness I'm in extremely good health. No matter what happens in the future, I will always carry on, but Crrow and I intend to do this. Let me put it this way. We've always discussed that no matter what success we get with the other things we're working on, like the film is the first really big one outside of the podcast is always going to come first, because every week we're going to deliver something new and fresh and hit you over the head as hard as we can with the best info we found on whatever the subject matter is. So, yeah, we're going to try and branch out and do more and more and more, but we are making the promise to people who love what we do that the podcast is always going to be front and center in our minds and our hearts.
Tell me what this movie you got out that's about to be launched. Do you have an official date when this thing's going to be launched? I don't want to put the pressure on you, but
No, you're not actually. I am going to give you an exclusive because we were kicking around a few dates based off of Sky Clock information, but Crow got – and he had a date, by the way. He had a date in mind for a little while now, and we had discussed it. But I can tell you that the official date now is – because he came back to me today after rechecking his numbers. He's checking his sums with all of the other wonderful astrologers out there. And April 5th is the official release date for Shoot the Moon.
Oh, nice. That would be perfect timing. That's a good time to go out and look at the sky, too. I can't wait, man. I've been talking about this every night. I cannot wait for the equinox, for this cold to go away so I can go back out. I'm kind of a wuss. I'm not a soldier when it comes to sky watching. I like the weather to be nice. But I can't. That's a perfect time to launch that, man. It really is.
Well, the springtime is definitely the time of the energy changing, the rebirth and all that. And anybody who even has a rudimentary grasp of nature, you know this. Spring is when everything comes back to life. So, yes, it's an absolute perfect time.
Yeah, I'm so obsessed with it, I'm counting it down. As a matter of fact, we are 40 days and 22 hours and 41 minutes and 41 seconds, 40 seconds, 39 seconds away. So that's how much I can't wait for it to happen. So tell me a little bit about this movie, man. It's gonna entail and what people can look forward to.
Well, I'll give you the whole story on it if you like.
Sure.
A little over a year ago, I said to Crow, we were talking about all the footage he's got and the fact that YouTube sucks quite a lot of ass right now and probably will just keep getting worse. And he's got all this footage and he's obviously a very good speaker, has all this knowledge. We both do. And I said, dude, why don't we just do a film? Let's encapsulate it. So what ended up happening was in this past October, I flew up to him, spent about 7 or 8 days, and we shot interviews and we talked about a whole bunch of stuff. Copied about 2 terabytes worth of data. I went through every hard drive the guy had, trying to get everything I possibly could. He had drives that weren't really working anymore, but thankfully my Mac was able to read them when his PC wasn't. So I got stuff that he was afraid had gotten lost. So yeah, altogether, I think it took up about 2 terabytes, and then I bought 2 6-terabyte drives and then just bounced one to the other to make sure I had duplicates of everything. And he did his best to go through stuff for me ahead of time, but I'm still finding things I didn't get into the film. Even now, the film's not like 90% done. Right now we're at the polishing and adding in the last little bits, the transitions for the final look of the film and all that, but I'm still finding things, and he's like, oh, yeah, let's get that in there, and let's get this in here. So that's the general gist of it, what's it's all going to be about.
Okay. See, because I've never even seen Saturn, like the planets. Like when I look up, they're just little dots. You know what I mean? They're little dots, and I'm like, hey, there's Saturn, there's Mars. And just in the preview got me excited, the previews to Shoot the Moon, because it shows some of the action and equipment that you guys use, that Crow uses to look at this stuff. And I'm jealous, man. I wonder what a rig like that, does it cost a lot of money for rigs like that? We're talking thousands, aren't we?
We're talking thousands.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I just re-looked at what stuff costs, and I'll tell you another story in a moment that's actually really cool that one of my listeners is doing me a huge favor of. But there's a guy out there called Bruce Sees All who is using basically like a bigger, more updated version of what Crow always had. And I went and looked to see just what it costs, and we're talking about $11,000, $12,000. What Bruce has is it's a 14-inch scope, if I remember correctly, Celestian, and a 46 or 47 megapixel Nikon. It's like the best one they make right now, so that's what he's shooting with. So as he gets better at using those tools, he's going to be able to do some superb work. He's still figuring it out because those are some pretty serious tools he's got to get the hang of. But Crow's very good at what he's got, and he's got, if I remember correctly, a 12-inch scope, Celestian, whatever that brand is.
Yeah.
And a 35 or 36 megapixel camera. So it's still really, really good stuff. It's just that Bruce obviously just bought his a few years later, and so a little bigger, a little more bombastic with the megapixels. And the megapixels are great. The more you have, the merrier, because you can blow those up without it pixelating. So more is better. It just costs a lot of money. But between the scope and the camera's about in the $4,000 range, and I think that telescope was between $8,000 and $9,000, if I remember correctly. So if you wanted to do some serious work, you're looking at that. Now, I'll tell you guys, if anybody's interested in doing this sort of thing, the one thing you're really going to have to invest in on top of just those two pieces of kit are hard drives, because you are going to chew through those really quick, especially if you start shooting in like crazy 4K and things like that, which is more than Crrow ever did. Now we're in the 4K age. People are expecting higher resolutions, and that chews through space like freaking crazy. So you got to go through your drives, everything you recorded. If it's stuff you're not going to need for anything, you got to wipe them out and start all over again, because you're going to use so much storage so fast. Man, it gets costly to have all this stuff.
Yeah, and I figured something out too, because I'm one of these marketing guys. I like to see where the interest is when it comes to the truth-seeking audience. Here's how you figure that out. Just go to like GoFundMe and look up things, and you'll see what people are willing, what they want, right? So like your movie is one of those things. They want this. You've gotten your goal, and that is that's really cool. And I think that just shows that how many people are behind this, man. How many people want this information. It also shows how many people don't know, right? And that's one of the things that I like to talk about on the show is like there's so many people out there telling you things like they know the answers to the universe. They know the answers to everything. But you know what I mean? But when it comes to the rest of the public, if we're really honest with each other, there's a lot we just don't know. We really don't. And people want some answers. And so they're willing to put whatever behind it, money, effort, energy, to get that. You know what I'm saying?
Well, not to put my film down, but I think my film might give people a lot more questions than it might give answers.
That's good.
But yeah, I mean, I guess you could look at it as being good, because we're going to show you so many clips, so many strange objects that Crrow shot over the course. Here's basically what you're going to get in the film. Some really killer interviews and explanations of things and voiceovers. There's also a really nice sized interview with Randy from Houston, who also shoots some really awesome stuff and caught the lunar wave himself twice. Crrow's got it 5 times, and all that's going in the film. But Crrow caught so many objects transiting the moon. He's got in the sky. He's got stuff all over, like crazy stuff, chemtrail footage like you've almost never seen before. That's all going in there. You're going to see stuff. I keep laughing about it. It's like, oh my God, this one film is going to smoke a whole season of some crap that's on the History Channel, where they just beat the same clip over and over and over again. It's like, right. Dude, I could throw away half the clips I've got and still have more than you guys.
You know what's weird about some of the clips that I've seen, like in the previews and stuff, is when you see these things fly over the moon, you're like, is that a satellite? And then you rewind it and you look again and you're like, why can I see through this? Why does this have some type of weird looking translucent type of background? Even the little objects you can kind of see through. So it's really trippy stuff, man.
Some of them do, some of them don't. We've got ones that he's got labeled as shadow ships, and I wasn't sure what some of those were, but he's got ones that are solid black. And the interesting thing is some of them are just flying like crazy, super fast, and some of them are just taking their old time, just all slowly tripping out, going all over the moon real slow, having a good old time going, oh, look at that critter over there. That's awesome. I mean, the amount of clips he's got astounded me at first. And that's hard to do. I'm a pretty chill dude. And I was like, damn, there's a lot of stuff here.
Yeah.
And what I ended up doing is making all these killer montages out of a lot of them. There's some that a lot of people have seen on the YouTube channel already that Crrow did specific breakdowns on. Those are going in too. But I have a fantastic musician. My joking name for him is the Maestro, but he is a good friend of mine who is a dual doctorate music professor. And he wrote all of the music. It's all classical, and it's just phenomenal. I feel very blessed that he volunteered to do this with us. He's like, oh man, let me contribute to this. I want to give you what I can do. And I was like, are you kidding me? So I have a literal dual doctorate professor of music who wrote my score for my film.
Wow,
so
man.
It totally blew me away that he did this, and the music is phenomenal. So what I ended up doing with a lot of them is he basically let me just tell him what I wanted, and then he did it within a day. Like he'd come back, oh, I wrote that piece you wanted. Boom, here it is. It's in the folder that we're sharing. And I was like, holy crap, man. So I did a lot of these really cool montages where I grouped certain similar clips together to kind of get them there, and I timed them out so that it all worked with the music and all that. So this documentary is going to be unlike a lot of other documentaries you've seen before. It's going to cut between Crrow talking about very specific clips, cutting into interviews he's doing, and then back and forth. I tried to make it absolutely as interesting as possible because the thing is clocking in at 2 hours. And here I was putting the thing together a few months ago. Like, oh man, am I even going to make it to 90 minutes so I can enter this into film festivals? And now I'm looking back and going, oh my God, am I going to have to start cutting stuff so the damn thing isn't over 2 hours?
Yeah.
So it's like total opposite mindset that I had just a very short time ago.
Well, you might be able to do like a deleted scene thing later or something. Who knows, right? But it's a lot of work because just doing audio is a lot of work. So I can imagine video and all the stuff that you're going to do. But this is one of my favorite subjects is the sky, the night sky, man, the planets, the stars, the moon especially, and all of this crazy stuff that's up there, because I think it links to a lot of the answers that we're looking for, which is one of the reasons why I talk about astrology a lot on this show. And I know that you guys, referenced the sky clock quite a bit, and you had, what was that guy's name you had on that? Was his name Michael Joseph? Is that what his name was?
He's one of them. Yeah, he's a cool dude. He knows a lot of stuff.
And it goes back, and then I've read some books like, John Anthony West, A Case for Astrology, even read Gordon White's book, Starships, and I just got this book in today from Aaron Voot, which is The Spirit in the Sky. And I think there's a lot more to the stuff that's going on in the sky than we think, for sure. And it's got to be more than what NASA's showing us. Hopefully you guys have figured that out by now. I mean,
NASA, yeah.
Yeah, I hope you know that they really are keeping the stuff from us, because there's just too much crazy stuff up there. Have you and Crow come up with any like solid theories on what some of this stuff is?
Well, hit me with some more specifics, and I'll tell you what we discussed.
Let's do the wave one first. What's y'all's theory? Now, keep in mind this theory, unless you've got evidence, what this thing really is.
The lunar wave?
Yeah.
Okay. We've had multiple ideas on it. Now, neither Crow nor myself subscribe to any groups. We're not flat earthers. We're not this. We're not that. We just see massive inconsistencies, and those inconsistencies absolutely challenge the mainstream notion of things. Now, NASA falls firmly in the department of mainstream, $56 million a day worth of mainstream, and they don't show us or tell us diddly squat. But we do not know what the lunar wave is. We don't know. That's the honest answer. Now, of course, Crow shot it first, but he didn't know that he wasn't actually the first person who did. There were people who had actually done it before, but not called it a lunar wave or even known it was anything. But Crow is, of course, the one who put it out there and said, hey, this thing I'm dubbing the lunar wave. It blew up. It went all over the world. He caught it a second time. And then come to find out, other people are starting to do a lot of sky work. And there's like 24 people now who have got this thing. So we're talking about people who are in different parts of the world with different equipment at different times of the day. And they're still getting the same kind of phenomenon. So all these ding-dongs that just dismiss it as, oh, that's just camera failure. And that's just an airplane
exhaust
that goes
from
by.
An airplane. Yeah, I've seen that.
But it's not. That's in the film. I've got multiple jets going by, and it shows you exactly on the screen what that looks like. And it does not look like a lunar wave. Now, the next part of the mystery about the lunar wave, though, that's so very interesting, is that two people now that I'm aware of have caught it around Jupiter. So there's a Jupiter wave that is the same kind of phenomena. And I don't remember who the first person was, but the second person was the really cool dude, Chris from Take Back Space. He caught it, I think it was last year sometime, if I remember correctly. And he put it out there, and then someone else had said, oh, someone else caught this too, and they put it up there. And I don't remember if it's Chris's or the other person's, but you can actually see the wave as it's going by. It's not only going over Jupiter and having the same effect as the moon wave does, but it actually goes over the 4 moons of Jupiter that you can see in the image as well. So that implied to me that perhaps there's something between us, the observer, and the moon or Jupiter. And I jokingly said to Crow when that came, I was like, okay, man, I want a frickin' Saturn wave now. You need to one-up this. Give me Saturn, baby. And of course he thought that was really funny, but no one that I know of has done Saturn yet, but Saturn's my thing, so I want a Saturn wave.
Yeah, I've never seen Saturn from a telescope until I looked at it. I hope that probably sounds sad to some people. But I've never seen Saturn from a telescope point of view until I even just saw the preview to that movie, and it's intense. But I mean, the flat Earth thing should be out the window by now, right? But I don't know, man. Like I think we don't know until we go up in space, and only people that are going to get to go up there are the rich folks. Isn't that something? Why the hell are they wanting to get off the planet so much? For some reason, they want to get out of here.
Yeah, it does seem to be the thing, doesn't it? I'm not in any camp. What I can tell you, honestly, Joe, is that I see massive, and I mean too many inconsistencies for the mainstream of anything to be exactly how things are. There's just too much. Now, that doesn't mean to say that I am a diehard flat earther, because I'm not anything.
Like the math isn't adding up and stuff like that?
Nothing is.
Right.
And I actually put an announcement out that I was leaving the fundraiser up. One, because any extra money that comes in is going to make our lives a hell of a lot easier to promote the film. But second, if I got enough, I was going to buy a Nikon P1000, and I was going to start doing all of my own tests because, well, I'm smart enough to do the math. So I was going to try and figure it out if I could. And one of our listeners contacted me and said, man, I'm getting this thing for you. I was going to buy one for myself, and I don't feel like figuring it out, and I certainly don't feel like doing the math. He's like, so I'm buying it for you and sending it to you. It'll be there in the next couple days. So he sent me the order number and everything, and I will have a Nikon P1000 in the next couple days, and I'm going to start figuring out just what I can based off of any real-world math I can get my hands on. And I want to know if a lot of the things that a lot of flat Earth folks talk about, I can prove for myself, because that's the way I am. If I can't find,
I mean, look, people can say what they want and fight all they want, but the evidence is key when it comes to this stuff. That just is.
Exactly.
You can't argue with it.
And the cool thing is, apparently one of the things that some flat Earth folks use as a great example of things not adding up is Lake Pontchartrain. Well, I'm an hour-ish away from New Orleans right now, so I'm going to have an Nikon P1000 to go down and start pointing from New Orleans over toward Slidell and see what I can see. And I'm going to try and find out how much distance is a megapixel at full zoom, at that 125 amazing zoom. So once I get all of that figured out and I shoot a bunch of footage, I'm going to try and start figuring this out for myself. And, of course, we're going to discuss it on Crow7 Radio, and we do a live show too, and people will sometimes hit us with questions there. So if I have anything fresh and ready to go, I can discuss it there too. But man, this camera it's like a little mini telescope.
Well, that's so cool. I want to talk a little bit more about the night sky and astrology and some esoteric stuff with you, if you don't mind. We do got to take our break here, but that's cool.
Sure.
Well, I mean, with Jason Lindgren, you guys, we could talk about anything. And don't forget, I did drop. Don't forget to sign up for the newsletter, guys. I forgot to mention that, but I did drop the link to the preview to the movie in the Spreaker chat and over on the Fringe FM chat. If any of you are interested, we'll be right back with Jason Lindgren. You guys don't go anywhere.
You got a spud?
No food, but I got a cool.
Insert 25 cents for another hour of this program.
This portion of the show is being brought to you by Beechnuts Mashed and Strained Chewing Tobacco for babies who just can't wait to grow up to be cowboys.
You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio. The truth is out there.
There's something out here.
And so are we. KTOK Digital Broadcasting, The Fringe FM.
When you're always on the go, it can be a hassle getting the proper servings of veggies and fruits into your everyday diet. Life gets hectic, making it hard for us to always make healthy food choices. Not to mention it's pretty expensive. Wouldn't it be great to ditch the long grocery store lines, but still get your fruits and veggies all at once? What you need is Balance of Nature Fruits and Veggies capsules, made with 31 of the highest quality fruits and vegetables and grown right here in the USA. Balance of Nature is 100% natural, safe, and affordable. For a limited time, use discount code TALK and you'll get 35% off your first preferred set of Balance of Nature fruit and veggie capsules, along with free shipping. Call 1-800-246-8751 today. Ready for the real results you want and need? Then you need Balance of Nature. Call 1-800-246-8751. That's 1-800-246-8751 and use code TALK.
Do you ever wonder why there's so much show in politics? Do you ever wonder why America's not getting fixed? Ever wonder why our media is not reporting the news? They report only their biased opinion. Are you tired of feeling like a controlled rat? Do you wonder what's next? If you're looking for answers, join me, Ronnie McMullen, for my new show, Deep Waters Radio. That's Deep Waters Radio. Monday nights, 9 p.m. Pacific, right here on the Fringe FM.
Hi, this is Aaron Hunter, host of Real Paranormal Activity, the podcast where we tell real paranormal experiences of people from around the world. And we also conduct interviews with authors, investigators, psychics, and mediums. Real people, real stories, real fear. Thursdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern on the Fringe FM. See you then.
When I'm done running with the wolves after hunting down a half-ton bison, I look forward to a mind-teetering escapade evening on the Fringe FM.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
This is Cortana from Shift Happens, telling you to pour a glass and park your ass because you're listening to KTLK, the Fringe FM. Shifthead.
Folks, this is very important information. What's to be said about CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. Our CBD is made from hemp and has 0.003 THC, which means this wonderful product won't get you high, no matter what amount you take. What does CBD do for the body? My hands are tied. But you can Google CBD benefits and be astounded. When you're finished reading, you'll want to log on to AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com and purchase. Life is good when you feel good. People are tired of pain. People are asking for non-GMO organic products to help them with you fill in the blank. Legal in 49 states, and again, our CBD is made from hemp. Ancient Life Oil is about helping people one by one by one. If you wonder how good the product is, the CEO takes it every day without miss. AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Have a great day.
Howdy, this is Catalina, and you're listening to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop.
This portion of the show is being brought to you by Ed's Old West Exterminators, the only exterminators in town who kill your roaches after giving them guns and allowing the roaches to draw first.
Welcome back to Lighting the Void. I'm your host, Joe Roop. We're live on the Fringe FM. Don't forget that after the show tonight, as you head on into the witching hour and you want to get your head slapped around a little bit, Ryan Gable will be up with the Secret Teachings. And another thing, too, is they released, TalkStream Live released its top 50 talk show hosts. And I would like to think that Ryan and I should be in there because I know for a fact that we've beaten some of those folks. But the thing is there's only one. These are just names of shows. So when you look on there, there's only one stream, and that's the Fringe FM, and they don't put networks up into the top 50. So we really didn't get to know what we really are, but that's okay. We don't do this for credit, even though it does feel good. I mean, like, come on, Jason, it does feel good to get your ego stroked every now and then. It's not a bad thing, right? Everybody's so anti-ego, but you gotta give it some food every now and then.
I agree. There's nothing wrong with it as long as you don't let it go to your head.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, at all these topics that you discuss, I've never asked you this question. You guys talk about a lot of topics on Crow 777 Radio. Out of all of these topics, what is the one thing that you're most interested in?
There's a few things. First of all, Thursday, since you brought it up, every Thursday is new episode release day. And just in case anyone is not familiar with the work we do, every Thursday we release a new episode at Crow777Radio.com, but it's also, and the first hour is always free. Mm-hmm. You can go on our website and hear the first hour of the episode, and there's always a lot of information packed just into that first hour. But it's also free on the YouTube channel, which is great as well. And we're always mixing up the subject matter. But to actually answer your specific question, there's a few things that really catch my interest a lot. One of them is stuff with Saturn, because my instincts tell me that that's a much deeper subject than I know about or most people know about, because it seems to all tie back to the powers that be, and it always Saturnalian death cults and all this other crazy stuff. So that's one thing I'm always looking at. Second of all, I am a musician, and I'm a singer-songwriter and a recording engineer and all that, and my favorite music comes from the 60s and early 70s. Right on. And as we were talking about earlier, the 60s is the big time of change. So from a conspiratorial point of view, as well as the musicianship, the 60s is incredibly fascinating to me, and I'm always looking to learn new things about that era. I'm a huge Beatles fan, even though I know there's a lot of shenanigans with them. I'm a huge Pink Floyd fan.
And that's when the psychedelics started kicking in, and people's brains started turning up a notch too, I think.
Right, and I find it so interesting how they changed everything within a few years, and I just find that whole cultural social engineering aspect incredibly fascinating. So that's another thing I'm really interested in. Another one that I really like exploring as often as we can is the whole transhumanism thing, and where they're trying to take us, and what the powers that be and their whole end game is. I'm really into that, trying to figure all that. Where's the technology really at? Because we don't really know. It's they give hints, I guess you could say, but you never know what's horsepucky and what's not. So I'm always following that stuff, and my buddy Wayne McCroy actually stays up on it a little better than I do. So something new comes out that's actually pretty
Wayne is
well
a smart person, man. You guys, I sent one of his books out to a couple of winners that. You know what's weird is, man, as I tried to send those books to Canada, and they charge people like $30 to mail out to Canada, but that book, you know, that he wrote is awesome. And it's kind of scary though, man, when you look into it, because if you put all this stuff together, like you're talking about with Saturn, the symbolism, and then you start looking into vibration, and you look into, what is it, cymatics and stuff. Yep. So you take cymatics and symbolism, and then you can see, wow, I mean, they don't have to really put up a 5G network and dust the sky to mind control us. They can pretty much do it already. And I feel like, I feel like that there's things in the universe that are just doing its job, but it is kind of weird how the symbolism just totally relates to it. You know, like for instance, the Jordan Maxwell, when he used to talk about how judges would wear black and all of these different things that resembled Saturn and its esoteric meanings and stuff. It's not a coincidence. So why are they doing it? Yeah, that kind of stuff really interests me too.
Yeah, I'm totally with you there, man. Jordan is great 3/4 of the time, and then he talks about some absolute serious hooey, in my opinion.
Like what's hooey? Like the alien girlfriend thing? Do you think that wasn't real?
I don't know. I've had my own experiences with a lot of crazy stuff, so I'm not going to say that particular one is hooey, but he gets into some stuff that I'm just like, I don't know, man, but I've seen things that would be classified as UFOs with my own eyes. I've seen things that would be classified as spiritual entities with my own eyes. But here's the thing. I can't prove any of it, so I don't go yapping to 5 billion people about it, or maybe I just did.
Yeah.
But I can't prove it, and I don't want to sound like a dumb crazy person or just an outright bullshitter liar. So I generally don't talk about them very much. I take them as these helped influence me and shape my worldview. And obviously it did a good job, because here I am trying my best to open everyone else's minds and raise their awareness with as much documentable evidence that I can.
No,
so those things obviously had a good effect on me, you know.
But over on the Fringe, you can talk about crazy stuff, and we'll let you do it, man. We're storytellers here. And when I say storytellers, I mean we talk about our experiences, because I really believe that above words and books and everything, other than when it comes to your own truth, your experience is your truth. But I think you should still question it. Like, so if you have an experience, doesn't mean, man, this is the ultimate truth. I saw an apparition and this, but you still need to go look at the psychological stuff and look at what, maybe some science about it, maybe why you saw this. But yeah, when an unexplained thing happens to you, a lot of people don't want to go shouting to the wind about it. But here we do. At least I have. I've made a fool of myself quite a bit on this program talking about, out of the body experiences and astral travel and stuff. But these things happen, man, and I can't help it because they're so profound. I want to talk about it.
I've experienced that a little bit too. Nothing super out there. I didn't go traversing the universe, but I definitely experienced astral projection. Yeah, these things are real, man. I agree.
Yeah, I didn't go anywhere in the universe. I couldn't leave my yard. It frustrates the hell out of me. You know where the first place I wanted to go to, right? Where's everybody want to go? I wanted to go to the moon, man. That's where I wanted to go. Right? You hear about
the moon or Mars.
Stories.
It's usually the two you usually hear.
Yeah. Well, I went to the moon. I left my body, and I saw the dark side of the moon and all this other stuff. And I'm like, okay. And it took me forever just to have like one type of experience, and then I really couldn't get out of my yard. So it was kind of disappointing. I'm still working on that, though. But you're right.
I didn't even get that far.
What could I do, man? What could I do to prove that to anybody? So is it really practical? Should we talk about it? I think we should, but I also think that we should really look into astrology and the esoteric meanings of religions and really get into that, because when you look at it, man, it all goes back to the sky clock, right? I think it really does. That stuff is all in there. It's all in there.
Absolutely. There's no doubt. The older religions, the further back you go, the more you realize it all just ties into the sky clock. And we call it the sky clock because that's literally what it is. It is the clock in the sky. It is the one absolute that no matter at what point in human history you look, the damn thing is still going to be there. Right?
Yeah.
And ancient man, whatever ancient man truly was, however long ago, these things are definitely debatable. There was still going to be the sky, and it was still going to be the sun and the moon and the stars. So, yeah, they looked up in the early days, and that is what they based religions off of. I don't think they had any great people standing on mountains throwing lightning bolts for real. They did. Maybe they did. I don't know, but I don't think so.
Well, it's that. I mean, obviously it's either that, or you can say that everybody that was born before Jesus' birth and death are just going to go to hell, and we all know that's not the truth, man. So where did these things come from? And it's all the story it's astrology is all in the Bible. It's in every text. And with Göbekli Tepe and all this other stuff, they're even seeing some of it in there. And then, like I said, I read Gordon White's book, Starships, which is a little bit more spiritual and animism type historical stuff. But I sometimes think that, man, when I go outside and I look in the sky, I kind of get locked on certain stars that I can't stop looking at. And I really think that there's more to it than just what somebody like Neil deGrasse Tyson says. Even though I know the guy is a super smart scientist and everything, and he talks about atoms and molecules, he's a scientist. He's not going to talk about the spiritual stuff, but I feel a pull to that stuff in the sky, man. And I'm not ashamed to say it. There's some type of connection there.
There absolutely is. And maybe what you're feeling is the pull of the ancestors, or the Akashic records, as some people call them. I don't know. I find that all very interesting. Now, someone like Neil deGrasse Tyson is indeed just going to give you the straightforward mainstream blurb on whatever the particular subject is, but there's a lot of people who will get into the whole thing more. And as we were just saying, the further you go back and look at religions, usually the way it seemed to work is one religion spawned into the next one as humanity spread out and cultures merged and all that kind of thing. And you see similarities between so many of the different religions, and it makes a lot of sense that that's just the way it worked, you know?
Yeah, for real. Yeah, it does. And so you guys, what are you going to do, man, when you get this movie out and it becomes a big hit? Because I think it's going to. You're just going to have to start making movies, man. That's what you're going to have to do.
Well, I can talk about that if you would like. We have something in mind already.
Really? What do you got?
We have in mind, actually, to be perfectly honest. Totally depending upon how this one goes. Now, I don't know if anybody listening right now even knows who the hell I am. If you do, maybe you're already pulling for us and be like, yeah, this thing's going to be great. Let's get it out there and seen and all that. One of my big plans that I would like to put into motion, and since the fundraiser was successful, I have this little idea I've had for ages now that I would love to go on tour with the film, bring the film to a city near you. Anybody who has a nice home that's a decent size and wants to open it up to me and to the community in general, get folks together, we watch the film, and then we have a little chat about it afterwards. I would love to go from city to city and basically act like I was a band on tour and show the film and talk about it. And it's such a great way, if we can pull this one off, to get people out of the internet-only mindset. Like, a lot of people are into this information, but they feel isolated and alone, and they're starting to wake up to things, and they see horrible shit everywhere and all that sort of thing, but they are by themselves, or they only know maybe one other person they could talk to in their area, and everyone else is whatever. They're just totally asleep. I would love to do this as a means of getting a bunch of people together, maybe 50 or even 100 people together in a home. Or if we have the money and the people are willing, we could do a theater or something like that, a club. I would do it in a club if a place was willing to do it. But I have no problem getting before a crowd and speaking, and I would love to meet you in large numbers. I think it'd be great.
Yeah, that would be cool. I've got a kind of a dream like that, but I'm afraid if I tell people what I really want to do, then I got this superstition in my head, like, hey, if you tell somebody your super secret idea, then it never becomes true. But that's just my hang up. So I don't know, but I want to say it, but I got to get past my hang up. Does that make sense to you?
Sure. Well, you do things when you feel comfortable with them.
You know what, man? Forget it. That's the superstition. I got to let it go. I want to get a freaking truck and an Airstream and put a radio studio in that thing and move around and just do shows, right? And then, kind of like have people try to guess where I'm at and stuff like that. That sounds stupid, right? But that would be fun, wouldn't it?
That's cool. That's really cool. My girlfriend Rose is sitting next to me, and she's smiling, nodding her head. Yeah, this is cool. I love that idea, brother.
Yeah, that would be fun, because it kind of reminds me of the old days, like Wolfman Jack when he was on the radio and stuff, and they, people were always looking for the dude and they didn't know where he was, and he would give them hints, but never. He did that at first, but anyways, yeah, everybody's got and when you get locked into production and radio and stuff, you get that sense of adventure comes back, and you're like, I got to get out of this tower, man. I've got to go somewhere. I've got to do something. And so how do you do both? And I just came up with that in my head.
Man, as long as you have a good internet connection, you could literally do it from anywhere. The technology is so great now. That's the thing. Me being a recording engineer and having been in the music business for so long on the retail side of it for years, I know the gear really well. And I can tell you, just even with cheap stuff, you could do so much now that was unheard of 10, 20 years ago. So, yeah, man, I'll help you figure that out. That's a killer idea. So don't think that's dumb. I love it.
Yeah, well, now somebody's going to do it. Don't do it. It was my idea, What are you going to do, right? I'm being selfish now. But come on, man. Give us something, Jason. Here on the Fringe, we like to talk about this stuff. Tell me about one of your paranormal experiences. We know you don't have evidence for it. All right. We know that there's no way to prove that it happened, and I don't think you're crazy at all, brother. So tell me what your first crazy paranormal experience was, or one of the biggest ones, anyways.
Well, one of the first ones I would have to honestly say is a UFO experience I had as a child. So sure, I'll give that to you. I don't care. I was 8 or 9, something like that, in the backyard of my mom's house, obviously where I lived at the time in northeastern Pennsylvania. And I was in the backyard. My mom was watching me from the upstairs window of her bedroom. And this beautiful, multicolored, chandelier-looking UFO kind of thingy slowly tumbled into view and slowed down and not quite, but almost hovered over my head. Slowed down enough that it was right over my head, and if I was an adult, I probably could have picked up a rock and chucked it at it and hit it. But I'm looking at it like, oh, my God. And I'm pointing at it, and I'm looking at my mom and looking back at it and going, Mom, look. And she looks at it and looks at me, and she just goes, oh, that's nothing. And whatever the 8 or 9-year-old equivalent of bullshit is went through my mind. I don't remember my exact wording in my own little childhood mind, but that's what went through me, and it just slowly tumbled away. And my mom saw it. She did. It was just that whole, this is too much for me. I'm going to shut my mind down.
Why do we do that?
Absolute,
why do we do that?
It's absolute denial. What's right before you, right? Man, it's the same crap with all the cognitive dissonance and all the stuff. You try and talk to people. People have cognitive dissonance. They have absolute denial. That if it doesn't fit into the worldview that they want to have, then it doesn't exist. Doesn't matter what you prove to them. It doesn't exist. It's never going to exist. You're just a crazy person. Go put your tinfoil hat on. Go away. Sorry, that's just how a lot of people are.
Yeah, for sure. But I always ask that because people that are into things like this and all these different subjects, usually, I mean, most of the time, they've had an experience and they want to talk about it or they want to figure it out. I don't know anybody like. I had the same experience with my dad. We went out when we were watching that meteor shower. It was like 2 summers ago, and we saw something move across the sky. Like, it looked like one of those fast movers, but it was a dot, and then it moved really fast across the sky. And I thought for a minute, well, is that a satellite? It can't be a satellite as fast as it's moving, just in a straight, a straight line, incredible velocity, right? And I asked my dad, I was like, man, did you see that? And he goes, yeah, I saw it. And I was like, what is that? And he goes, hell if I know. Probably something natural, though. And it didn't even faze him whatsoever. I'm like, there's stuff in the sky up there. We don't know what it is. And I tried to talk to him for like an hour about it. And he's like, well, it's all in your mind. That was his favorite saying. I was like, you saw it, though. How could it all be in my mind?
It's all in your mind. God, man. What a freaking line. Yeah. Now, I can tell you one thing that you might find interesting. Wayne and I are actually childhood friends. And he will corroborate what I'm about to tell you. There is a lot of weird evidence of the supernatural as well as unidentified flying objects, whatever you want to call them, whatever you want to consider them. Right. Where we're from in the Wyoming Valley, there's just a lot of weird stuff that goes on. It's got a very dark feeling to it, but I used to go ghost hunting. I actually had the idea, ironically enough, around 2000-ish. I used to go ghost hunting with a couple friends, and I actually had the idea, but the technology wasn't there yet for what a bunch of other wankers came out with for ghost hunters. I had such a similar idea, but never had the money to do it, and the equipment really wasn't there that early on either. It would have cost a fortune that I didn't have. But I was like, man, if we could do this and document and put it almost like a documentary style, this would be a killer TV show. But we caught some interesting things. The most interesting one here, if you want stories, brother, I'll give you a great story. There was this awesomely beautiful Victorian house at the top of a street in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania called Cole Street, and older Victorian home that had on and off been used as a mortuary. And if I remember together, it was – let me see if I can get these details right. I think it was 6 gay dudes. It was 3 couples had bought it to renovate it, to bring it back to historical standards. They were very into that kind of thing, and they were all friends. And they were like some of the nicest people I've ever met, to be honest with you. And I really enjoyed speaking with them, and they gave us as much history as they could on the place and all that. One of them had actually walked into – in these old homes, they used to have an actual – I don't know what they're called, but like a foyer or a front room. Like you walk in, there was a room before you got to the rest of the rooms of the house because it was that foyer. Big. And it's, I guess foyer is the correct word, sure. And it was 4 floors, 4 full floors, so big house. Beautiful, man. I loved walking around in there. But one of the dudes said he walked in the door one day and there was this old woman standing there. And he's like, hello, excuse me? This is our home. Can I help you? And he said she just kind of turned around and poof. Wow. And yeah, so – and they had other reports of paranormal activity and all that. And this is going back to somewhere around 2000-ish, so you'll have to forgive me if my memory's a little shaky on this. But they told us a lot of ghost stories about the place, things that they were getting. This is the first time that I'd ever found out or heard of that night vision, like you know how some camcorders would have like a night thing on them?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I didn't know at the time that you could pick up orbs and things like that. So we found out by accident while we were walking around this place that you can pick up ghost orbs. And oh my God, did we pick them up. There's no way any mainstream scientist could dismiss what these things were other than not natural phenomena. And that was my job. My joke was always that I was the scientific advisor of the group. Because I have a good background in science and always had a good head on my shoulders. So I would try my damnedest to absolutely explain away anything that we came across or whatever the people were reporting was going on and all that. So that was my job. My friend Todd was kind of it was his idea for the group originally, so he kind of did all the yippity yapping. But I was there and with eyes and ears open and paying attention to everything and trying to figure out just what was going on. Well, this house, more than any of them, there were no rational scientific reasons for it. And the most activity we found was in one of the bedrooms upstairs. I sat on the bed and we were filming just me there, and then we looked back at the footage a little while later, and there were orbs all around me, swishing around and all that. I had no idea they were there. I just felt kind of a weird cold tingle in the room, which is something I'm very intuitive to these kinds of things. So I was feeling it. I knew something was up, but that room, let me see if I can explain this well. The house was 4 full floors, so 3 floors and a basement, a full basement. It was very interesting when we started taking getting footage of every floor. It was almost like a ghost elevator from that bedroom and all the rooms that were directly underneath it. One side they were going down, the ghost orbs, and we found out where it was in the basement. It was in the little room that had the washer and dryer was directly 4 floors down from that bedroom I was sitting in. And then the other side, they were going back up and just zillions of these orbs. I don't really remember how many.
Where's this at again? Is this in Louisiana?
No. I'm from northeastern Pennsylvania, and it's in a town called Wilkes-Barre. Yeah, that's where I grew up. Wilkes-Barre. Well, I was born in a town called Kingston, Pennsylvania, but this was in Wilkes-Barre across the bridge of the Susquehanna River. Where I'm from, just to explain it, is an area called the Wyoming Valley, and it was settled by Quakers way back when, 1600s-ish. But it blew up in a huge way in the 1920s and 30s because of all of the the blue anthracite coal. There was massive amounts of blue anthracite coal, and that was one of the main things that was used as fuel in the early 20th century. So if you ever listen to old-time radio and they're talking about blue anthracite coal, get yours today, a lot of it more than likely came from right where I was born and raised. And there's tons of empty strip mines all over the place in this area. Mines are some of the most paranormally infested things on the earth. I got this sound that I play on the show all of the time. I'm sure have you heard it? The creepy mine sound that nobody can figure out. I don't know if I've heard that actually. I'd like to hear that. Man, I'll see if I can find it and play it. I got it somewhere when we come back. We got to take a break. But you're sharing these experiences with us. That's great, man. I knew this stuff had happened to you. I'm kind of sad that we haven't talked about this stuff before. But that's all right. But we're at the top of the hour, guys. I'm Joe Roop. This is Lighting the Void. You guys will be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Are advised that this program is a simulation.
Remember, gang, this is National Vacuum the Lint from Your Belly Button Week. Because a clean navel is a happy navel.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation. and Angioprim is the result, a safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now for a special radio offer from Angioprim. That's angioprim.com/radio. ANGIOPRIM. Angioprim.com/radio or call 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
This is Elle. I listen to Lighting the Void because it's interactive radio with good content, interesting guests, and a humble host, sharing his journey through the esoteric. Hey, Joe Roop. Thanks for having us along for the ride.
Thank you so much for a delightful evening.
Well, I got a lot of ground to cover.
Magic, the occult, history, health, news. These are just a few subjects discussed on my radio broadcast, The Secret Teachings. I offer unique and objective perspectives on new and old subjects alike, while welcoming guests and presenting my own research with no filter. Visit my website for more information and to subscribe to my archive at www.thesecretteachings.info. And find me on The Fringe FM live Monday through Friday, midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern on The Fringe FM.
Hi, this is Sammy. Join us in the Deep South as we're lighting the void with Joe Roop on The Fringe FM.
Do you want to lose weight but have no idea where to begin? The Fast Start Diet, a 3-day weight loss plan, is the answer. 3 days of nutritionally balanced, calorie-restricted meals delivered right to your door. No shopping, no measuring, and no cooking. Everything is prepared for you and ready to eat at home or on the go. The Fast Start Diet has all the amazing benefits of intermittent fasting without starving. We've helped thousands of people who have struggled to reach their weight loss goals. Isn't it time we helped you? With the Fast Start Diet, you'll lose weight and feel great.
Find us on Amazon or go to faststartdiet.com and use promo code POWERSAVE to get 10% off your first box. And as a special bonus, we will include our #1 rated appetite suppressant spray free with your order. Whatever your diet plans are, start with us at faststartdiet.com and use promo code POWERSAVE.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app. Free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Yo-hoy there. Gigi here.
And I'm Cortana, and we're going to bring you on a journey through all things paranormal, metaphysical, ufology, and even psychedelic. On our show,
Shift Happens, live, Fridays at 7 p.m. Pacific. That's 10 p.m. Eastern on The Fringe FM.
And remember, kids, don't feed the Archons. Feed ducks instead.
Duck up.
This station recognizes our obligation to broadcast meaningless opposing viewpoints.
Jason, I want to play this clip for you that I've played for some people here. I really think that this is probably truly unexplained paranormal activity. This has got to be like the 5th time I've played it. Let me just give you a backstory, because I can see that some people are listening that's never listened before. So this guy does videos about flashlights. You know how people do YouTube videos and then they affiliate with certain products and they put their affiliate links in there and you buy the product and then they get the commission, right? You know what I'm talking about?
Absolutely.
So that's what this guy's doing. And it has nothing to do with the paranormal. In fact, I tried to get him to come on the show, and he didn't want to come on the show. He didn't. He's like, I'm not even involved with that. This just happened when I was going through the mine. So he's going through this mine, and he starts to hear this weird noise. And I think it's some type of warning, like he's getting a warning to back away. But it could be, I don't have any evidence of this, by the way, but it could be natural phenomena. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play it, and hopefully you can hear it. And we make sure that I got the timing here.
So we'll get through here as fast as we can and get out of here before this all comes down. Here's that ore.
I have to speed it up just a little bit. So he's going through the chute, and he's like almost a mile into this thing. So imagine how freaky that is. And it looks like it's going to collapse on you.
And then you can see how big these timbers are. That's about almost a foot in diameter, the big cross timbers. So they had to put big ones in here to hold up all of this rock. And you can see right here where some of these boards are bending. Do you hear that? Sounds like, what is that, wind? I don't know if you can hear that on the camera. Do you hear that? It stopped. Well, I don't know what that is. That doesn't sound like wind, but that's crazy.
So he freaks out and bails out of there. Now, does that sound like natural sound phenomena to you inside of a cave?
It sounded almost digital. I'd like to isolate it and hear it again a few times in my really good headphones so it's nice and close to my ears so I can really hear what frequencies are there. I'll tell you what, I'll do this for you, man. Send me that clip, and I will do my best to isolate it and try and figure out from a scientific point of view, in an audio sense, what I'm hearing and what I think is there.
That would be great, because this thing has plagued me forever trying to figure out what it is. Because, I mean, let's face it, real strange activity only, it doesn't happen, well, at least not to me and the people I know, it doesn't happen constantly. All right, so when we run across it, especially like me, I get crazy about it, man. I get obsessed and want to try to figure out, is this real? Well, number one, is it real or is it fake? And if the sound is real, could it be natural or could it be a spirit? And most people that have heard this cannot explain it, and even some people are like, yeah, that's definitely some type of spirit or something. And I don't know why I'm so obsessed with it, man, but it's stuff like this that I just cannot stop trying to figure out what it is, man.
It's interesting. I can't give you an honest answer right now. It definitely has my attention. So yeah, get that over to me and let's see what we can figure out, bro.
Okay, cool. So you guys heard it. I'm going to send this to Jason. He is my sound guy, by the way. He's the guy that I know that knows best about sound. So I'm going to send that to him and let him evaluate it. And then maybe we'll get some kind of information back, at least figure out if it's real. Maybe not the explanation of it, you know? So you and Crrow, when you do this show, by the way, we air you guys' Hour One podcast every Saturday. And then if you guys want to check out the second hour, all you got to do is become a member, and it's super cheap. It's $7 a month and something like that. It's pretty cheap to get.
Yeah, it's $7 a month, and that $7 gets you little access to 146 episodes, I believe we're up to now. So you get all of that, which is just an amazing amount of content right there to begin with. I couldn't even tell you how many countless hours of my life has gone into 146 episodes. Now, I'm not on the first few. Crrow brought me in shortly afterward, but I'm on most of them. So if you like my little Tinkerbell voice, you'll hear me on just about everything, but not the first couple.
Y'all have a live radio show on Truth Frequency, too, don't you? Are you still doing that?
Yeah, we started that a couple months ago. We're up to episode 22, something along those lines. We've done 20-odd episodes, and we approached that one a little different. We do pick subject matter, but it's a little more lighthearted, and we'll take calls, which is something we obviously don't do on a pre-recorded show. Mm-hmm. And it's just a little more of a relaxing time for that hour that we do it. We try not to stress over it. We just try and have a good time. We have a killer chat room. There's usually 25, 30 odd people there, sometimes more than that. And apparently, and I didn't know this, but somebody told both of us the other day that we interact more with our chat room and keep that whole thing going more than anyone else on that entire network.
You probably do. And
yeah,
it's not easy, man, especially when you're doing a show. Everybody wants you to chat and stuff. And every time I try to look at chat rooms, whether it's on Spreaker or the Fringe FM chat, I get distracted. So I know some hosts can do it, but I like to focus on the conversation, and I may look at the chat room at break and stuff, but it is cool because I used to be that guy, like listening to Art Bell and stuff and be in the chat rooms. And so having that interaction is really fun.
It is. And I tell folks there all the time, it's like, hey, if you got questions, I'm keeping an eye out. My girlfriend Rose is also helping me at the same time in case I miss anything. And she's constantly interacting with all these people. And they're people who are generally listeners of us anyway. Like, they know who both Crow and myself are. I think most of them there are also Crow7 Radio subscribers or listen to us or at least are familiar with us. And a couple of the other hosts, actually, who are at that station love our work, too. So they're usually there. So it's this great little community that I really enjoy doing every Sunday night. So that's really cool. It's a cool way to extend what we do so that it's just a little different approach, not just the once-a-week episode where we're hardcore researching and putting out very serious subject matter. We'll get a topic, we'll discuss it a little bit, and try and have a good time doing it at the same time. Now, I'll tell you, this past week, I was speaking with David Weiss and Jaron Campanella. They were looking for questions to put out for people challenging the mainstream notion of things. Apparently, they've been getting a lot of feedback that in middle school and high school, a lot of students are asking teachers questions they can't answer, and they were looking for questions that could be at that level, that high school level, that they could say, hey, these things aren't easily answerable. Throw this at your teacher and see what happens, because those guys are really cool people. I've known David forever. He's a great dude. He plugs us. Man, that guy does so much for me. David from Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole. He goes above and beyond to plug Crow and myself, and I can't thank that guy enough for how much he does. So I'm going to return the favor and say David Weiss is awesome. Killer guy for false flag investigations and all that, and really cool. So
he's sending students into their schools to ask them questions that the teachers can't answer. That's got to make them fun.
They put out a call to everybody, and they asked me too. Hey, we're gonna do this. We want to try and collect some questions from everybody who's got a good head on their shoulders. Is basically what it came out to. Well, I came up with 40 of them, but it wasn't like a direct passive aggressive about flat earth thing. I came at it from my experience with Crow7 Radio that, hey, these are inconsistencies I found, and then I just reworded them as questions. None of them sound like a direct attack against NASA or people like Neil deGrasse Tyson, nothing like that. They're just things that I know aren't easy to explain and don't necessarily have a great explanation. And if I sat down with some mainstream astrophysicist, I'm pretty sure that even though I don't know things to the detail that I do, I understand enough science that you're not going to be able to easily explain this away. And I gave that to them, and they liked them a lot, but some of it they thought was a little over the head for students. But I'm pretty sure some of mine that I submitted are going to go out there. But I sent it to Crow too, and he loved most of them as well. So we started going through them actually this past week, and this is actually why I was telling you the story. So this past week we started going through them, and really only got through about a dozen of them. So we're going to try and get through the rest on this Sunday, just because they're all about space fraud, basically. They're all something to do with inconsistencies found all across the board with things to do with space, because I love space. I love everything to do with it, and I'll tell you, man, when I finally realized that they bullshitted us on the moon landings, it broke my heart, and I kind of went on the attack. I wasn't literally like drooling bulldog trying to rip your leg off, but I definitely was like, man, they lied about this. They did not go to the moon, and I wanted to be an astronaut when I was a kid. My mom had all these awesome encyclopedias with tons of pictures, and I knew all the stuff about the missions, and, like a lot of kids do. And when it finally occurred to me that there's just no freaking way that this happened the way they said it did, I'm now using all of that science background that I had to flip it on them and be like, I'm going to expose you.
Really?
Because you're not doing humanity any service by acting this way, by lying to all of us.
So what's your opinions on, then you know a lot about this subject. What's your opinions on Kubrick, man? I've heard a lot of theories about this guy. Like, this guy knew inside information, worked with the CIA. I've heard everything about this guy. Do you got any theories on him? Do you think he was really in the know?
There is no single smoking gun, from my point of view, that Stanley Kubrick faked the moon landings. Not that I have uncovered. I know Jay Weidner is very convinced of it and all that, and I can see why he would be. I'm not trying to poo-poo Jay Weidner, because I think he does great work. But there's no singular smoking gun, but there is a lot of circumstantial evidence. Pictures with him with Arthur C. Clarke and NASA people. He was filming over in England while for 2001: Space Odyssey. Brain worky, please. At the same time, they're working on Apollo, and apparently these people are going back and forth. And why on earth are NASA people involved with the Apollo program working with a filmmaker? That doesn't happen normally. Strange. Yeah, so there's all this circumstantial stuff that absolutely is there. Now, I have seen the work on the front screen projection, and there absolutely does seem to be some pretty solid evidence that is the technique that was used. Now, I'd have to say I'm 99% convinced. I mean, could it just be the way things were laid out if they really did go to the moon in this tin can? I'm open-minded enough to say that maybe, but it really does look like that it was a setup, and that at least in some of the photographs, that front screen projection very well could have been what's used. And I know a lot more about video and filmmaking now than I did, that I learned in the past year or so, bombarding myself to learn how to make a film, that I'm now applying to this older knowledge that I had than I would have ever had before. So yeah, I'm looking back, I'm like, okay, well, this is what existed in the 50s, 60s, 70s. Compared to now, you could do anything and make it look like anything. I mean, you could have...
He was good, though, wasn't he? I mean, he was good.
He was phenomenal. Now, what's interesting that I was doing that a lot of people haven't done, I started looking at the angles that were shot for some of the Apollo craft that they were showing in space, the different pieces of the whole mission's craft, you know what I mean, like the capsules and things. And I'm just like, so let's just go with the theory that Stanley Kubrick is the one behind this. The guy had like a 200 IQ, insanely intelligent, incredibly detail-oriented. He had notebooks upon notebooks upon notebooks and would have mounds of pictures. Whatever film he was working on, the amount of work he put into it, like pre-work, homework, was astounding. I don't know anybody. I've never heard of another director being this insane about stuff, but he was. So every angle and every little thing he did was mapped out in his mind ahead of time before he shot, and he would shoot take after take after take after take. So obviously shooting the moon landings would probably be a little different. He couldn't treat them like the way he would treat, say, what's her name from The Shining, and that he drove insane doing it. But yeah. Some of the angles are very cinematic. You know, you think about these things ahead of time. Like, so if you were shooting
like these angles these angles are shot from somebody that would understand movies and film.
This looks the best. Let's shoot it this way. Like if an astronaut who is, well, the astronauts in those days would all be former military men, and well, actually they'd be current military men for the time. They aren't exactly filmmaker quality material, are they? So if they were really there and really doing this, the most you're going to get is that they're sticking a Super 8 camera up to the window, pulling the trigger, or just shooting a photograph. But that's not what we see. We see these perfectly, beautifully shot things on the moon and in space and all that just absolutely seemed next to impossible for somebody with no or minimal, let's be fair, maybe some people were just good at taking photos, so minimal but certainly not professional experience. And they're framed perfectly, and they're amazing, and they're incredible. There's tons of that all over the place. All you got to do is look at them, and they're so iconic, and they're so amazing. And you're trying to tell me that a dude who couldn't look down at his own toes had this thing on his chest, and all he could do is point in a direction. He couldn't even move it and pull the trigger to close the shutter. They got all of these images, not to mention all the stuff in space with the spacecraft moving around, things like that. I was bouncing back and forth. I actually did this one night. This is how nutty I get with some of this stuff at times. I was looking at the shots from the moon in the more early parts of 2001: A Space Odyssey and comparing them with Apollo footage, and man, I'll tell you, some of them really did look kind of similar.
Well, yeah, you wouldn't. I mean, astronauts don't know. These guys aren't trained in film for sure. You know,
they're trained eventually. I mean, of course, they would have some rudimentary training on how to use cameras. Of course, they have to, obviously.
But think about it. There's no way they could prepare unless they went over it in their mind. I don't think that they could prepare for that kind of cinematic shots on the moon, though, right? Like, they didn't really know. They didn't really know what was going to happen when they got up there. A lot of that stuff was theory, and I don't know. It's a head scratcher for sure.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that they got so many incredible photos. Now, they do say they got a lot of crap too, but that's not what you see. Okay, fair enough. That's believable that they shot a lot of rolls of absolute garbage, on their film. But there's so many questions, man, and I don't need to beat the same things to death, but
sure.
Film cannot survive radiation. That's why digital was invented. Why so much money went into digital? It's so that you could take high-quality images, high-resolution images, without the physical apparatus part of it getting destroyed. How many amazing shots got lost to history because the damn camera screwed up or the film broke or whatever, or got overexposed? You opened it up and the light hit it and boom, it's dead. God only knows how many things we lost to history. With digital, it's almost, I'm not going to say it's flawless, but it's really good,
Well, yeah. That's why I like having an arsenal of people, man, that I can send stuff to. Think about it. When it comes to sound, I'm going to go to you. And probably when it comes to film, now that you've got some of this stuff under your belt here. But people send me videos of stuff in the email all the time. They want me to talk about it or have them on the show. And I'll send a film, a shot to somebody like Tim Doyle from UFO Seekers. And he'll be like, yep, that's just a light that's been zoomed into. They all look like discs when you zoom in that much. And then he sends me back a film of zooming out on a street light, right? And it's the same thing where these people think it's a UFO. And so when we look at film, we don't really know all the ins and outs of it like some of these people do. It's a whole artwork that has a lot of moving parts to it, man.
It does. And as a matter of fact, in your clip, I was hearing digital comb filtering.
Oh, really?
And that's why I want. Well, and that's not necessarily good or bad. It's just what I was hearing, as a one take. I just heard that. That's why I want to hear it more. I want to, if there's comb filtering, why is there comb filtering? Generally, you get that when there's phase issues. There's a lot of real world practical things that goes into sound that if I can hear it multiple times, hell, if I can throw it into a spectrograph, you can look at it up close and be like, okay, what am I really seeing here? What frequencies are and aren't there? Things like that,
Right. Yeah.
Same thing with photos that I'm getting the hang of. It's very similar.
It's something else I wanted to talk to you about, and I've always was thinking about this when I said, man, when I get Jason back on the show, I want to talk to him about this, is the symbolism in movies and film. Like, so I don't know if you watch any of the new stuff that's out, like the stuff that's on Netflix and all of these things like Sabrina, the Teenage Witch, and there's a lot
I watched the first couple of those just because a friend of mine brought it up about how freaking horrible it was.
Yeah.
With like how blatantly satanic it was. I was like, oh, well, I'll watch an episode or two just so I can comment on it. So yeah, that one I can definitely say I saw.
Well, so what I'm trying to figure out is that one's a little obvious, right? But in other movies, there are things that have symbolism. And we can go back to the sky clock or the esoteric symbolism. It's just in there, especially things like Marvel movies and comic books and stuff. It's all in there. And I wonder sometimes if these film creators are putting this stuff in there on purpose. But then you also hear about, but you also hear about this thing where, and this could just be cliche because I've never really experienced it, where an artist kind of gets into the zone and it's not really them and this stuff is just coming through them. And I'm thinking, well, what if somebody's kind of making them do that stuff? But that's a little heavy, right? So what's your opinion on that? You think that they're blatantly putting in these symbols and stuff in these movies and stories nowadays? Because it's really big now.
Yeah. The problem is I don't know who they is. Like let's take a Michael Bay movie. He's doing the Transformers. He's got all these explosions and blur, blur, blur action. It may not be Michael Bay himself that's saying, I want a pyramid with an eye on this blackboard behind Christopher Walken here, like that kind of thing. I don't necessarily think it's the top guys that are running the film. And I've kind of made this joke to a lot of people. It's like, is there a little department, Illuminati department, where it's like, well, we need to get the symbolism there. The movie's done. Where do you want what? And, it's like the guys come down with their little round glasses on. Okay, we're going to put this over here and we're going to put that over there. And you need to do this hand sign. We're going to do a reshoot. I don't know, man. I don't know how it's getting in there, but somebody's doing it. It's too freaking blatant at this point. And I'll tell you, there's agenda like crazy going on. And if you want to hear me go on a little bit of a rant here, I've been on the attack over some of the intellectual properties that I loved as a child that I've just had to completely let go of now because they are decimating them. Best examples are Star Trek, Star Wars, and Doctor Who. They have all got this massive agenda slammed into them that they've absolutely destroyed their franchises. They're losing money like crazy. Disney admitted just recently, maybe a week or two ago, that they've lost tens of millions of dollars on Star Wars. How do you lose money on Star Wars?
That can't be. But do you believe that?
Yes, because The Last Jedi was the biggest steaming pile of garbage turds I've ever seen in my life. Like, that movie was so atrociously bad. I didn't like The Force Awakens, but it was more boring than anything. It was just a complete rehash of the original Star Wars. And, of course, they had to bump Han Solo off because we got to start killing all of the old characters who are actually masculine. But The Last Jedi, holy crap, man, that movie, that is the worst movie I've ever seen as far as hundreds of millions of dollars going into it that turned out this bad. I mean, Highlander 2 is a really bad movie, but the amount of effort that went into that compared to what goes into a Star Wars movie, it's just night and day. How could they make a movie this horrible? How could they write a movie this bad? How could they let it be characterized this bad? Like, just everything about that movie sucked beyond all belief. Don't tell me that they don't know what they're doing. This is intentional. And that started the whole boycott thing. So when the Solo movie came out, which actually wasn't that bad, I did watch it.
Solo was good. I kind of liked it. And everybody was like, it's terrible. And I thought it wasn't. I thought it was all right.
Terrible, but I mean, I can still point out a lot of stuff, but it was not the steaming turd that The Last Jedi was. The Last Jedi killed Star Wars. Let's just be blunt here, man. And I grew up. I'm just old enough that I was 4 years old when the original Star Wars came out, and I still have memories in the back of my mind seeing it for the first time in May of 1977 on the balcony, leaning on the brass rail. And the theater I saw it in was an actual theater converted to a movie theater in Exeter, Pennsylvania. I remember going to see it with the family in the red VW bus and seeing Darth Vader for the first time and going, wow. And at that point, I was in love with Star Wars all of my life until recently.
Yeah, they made it like the storyline is really screwed up. By the way, 314 days, 23 hours, and 27 minutes, and still Star Wars Episode 9 releases. Just
and nobody cares.
And nobody cares because everybody's giving up on it.
This is the only thing non-majorly conspiratorial I really follow. I have been looking into people discussing what's going on with these properties, and if they're really getting that there's a true agenda behind it, they're not admitting to it. I think they're more like normal people who are just super nerds into this crap and just tearing it apart because they're not getting what they want. And here's my thoughts on it, my final thoughts, because I think we're going to a break very shortly.
Yeah.
There's no way a company like Disney doesn't know what they're doing. It's come to the point, and I've discussed this with Crow on air, in fact, that agenda is now taking the place of making money. There is no way in heaven or hell you could lose money on a Star Wars movie if you're at least giving it a mediocre try. You can put out a mediocre movie and the fans will still lick your freaking boots and thank you for it. Rogue One is a good example. It was a decent movie. It wasn't the be-all, end-all of Star Wars movies, but it was good. And it even had their little female lead that they got to have these days. It was fine. It was good. It told the backstory to the original A New Hope. And it sold. It made money. Then we get the steaming pile of garbage that is The Last Jedi, and you know what? Star Wars literally just got the handle on the toilet pulled.
So Star Wars 9 is going to be a train wreck, you're thinking?
I would bet money on it, and you know what? The MCU is about to get it too. because Captain Marvel, they're doing the same SJW horseshit, dude. Doctor Who, they flushed that one down the toilet too by casting a female who is outspoken attacking the fans. Her big mouth never stops. Don't be afraid of my gender. It's I can't remember her exact words, but it was about saying white males are no longer the important one, like all that kind of stuff. And I don't need to keep going into it, but it's like, it's so obvious they're letting these people do it. Nobody in their right mind would attack their own fans. That's where your paycheck comes from. Doctor Who has a 21% audience approval on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, and
21% like the garbage with the female doctor. That tells you something. People don't want this crap. The same thing is happening with Captain Marvel. That stupid actress Brie Larson is running her big mouth about...
I can tell you're passionate about this, Jason. I thought you're a little bit more than I am. By the way, 604 days, 11 hours, and 54 minutes until the Doctor Who Series 12 premiere date happens. That's unconfirmed, though.
Yeah, they had to put... It did so bad that they know that they had to give it a rest. And they keep saying how much of a success it was and all that. And then Jodie Whittaker was up for all these awards and everything like that. But it was she was mentioned. She was one of the ones on the list. She won nothing. Doctor Who won nothing. A white male won over her. Like when it's public voting. And here's where you know the public doesn't want this crap. They don't want it. And they voted with their dollars with Solo. Do you know Solo lost somewhere around $80 million because of all the reshoots and then the massive amount of advertising they put into it? How do you lose $80 million on a Star Wars movie starring one of the big three of the original trilogy? Even though it wasn't Harrison Ford, it was still about him. You lose $80 million? The agenda is the point now.
Yeah, for sure. And what some people are going to say, and yeah, we do got to go to a break, but you're just mad because they killed Han Solo. You're damn right. They should have never killed Han Solo. Never.
I do think part of that was Harrison Ford, too, because he doesn't like Star Wars. So he probably agreed to do it one more time, but that was it. I'm conjecturing, but Harrison Ford made it pretty clear he doesn't like Star Wars.
Right. He was my favorite character. That was a heartbreak, for sure. We'll be right back, guys, with Jason Lindgren. Don't go anywhere.
Legal advice for today's show is being provided by the House of Shysters. Remember our motto, in every cloud there's a silver lining, and in every silver lining there's a loophole.
The truth is out there.
There's something out here.
And so are we. KTLK Digital Broadcasting, The Fringe FM. Introducing Shadow Light Tarot from Waking Canvas, the Fringe FM's new contributing artist, Eric Tisi. This hand-illustrated black and white self-published deck serves as a reinvention of the tarot, never before witnessed. Each of the several suits of this 88-card deck lineup form an infinite panoramic scene. Even the included visual companion guidebook is entirely hand-illustrated, cover to cover, with beautiful visuals and esoteric symbols and artwork. The newly released deck comes in a custom magnetic box with its own travel pouch. The Shadow Light Tarot Premium Deck and its travel-sized mini deck Wonderlight Tarot are both available now from WakingCanvas.com. If you use the code word FRINGE, that's F-R-I-N-G-E at checkout, you'll receive an extra 10% off your entire order. To discover more, including a free reading and time lapses of all the illustrated artwork, make your way over to WakingCanvas.com today. That's WakingCanvas.com.
Alright everyone, this is Justin from the UK. Excuse the chitty. If you're into the Fringe and you want to hear the brass tacks, me old China plate, Joe Roop and his guests on Light in the Void will open your mince pies. You need to shut your north and south and use your 10-speed gears and listen to them bubble. You could hear a Barry Crocker, no Brussels, but he ain't no holy friar. Anyway, you beat a Barnaby Rudge and take a butcher's.
Hey Fringe FM listeners, did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or no Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of the Fringe FM by calling 701-719-3971. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. Saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Call 701-719-3971. That's 701-719-3971. Listen to the Fringe FM on any phone, anytime, anywhere.
you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app. Free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Your home has needs. It needs a healthy, dry environment all year round. Start by getting rid of the worst air in the basement and crawl space, where the problems begin and make the whole house sick. Introducing the new Smart Wave Ventilation Unit. It has advanced technologies to continuously reduce moisture, mold, and odors, and expel radon, gases, and pollutants. And now, Wave units include carbon monoxide detection to automatically expel air at a high rate and send you an alert. It also has an app so you can remotely monitor the conditions. Wave is a comprehensive, maintenance-free, affordable solution that will transform your entire home. Protect your home and family with what it needs. Give it a new Smart Wave Ventilation Unit. For more information, call 888-717-WAVE. That's 888-717-WAVE. Or go to dryhealthyhome.com. That's dryhealthyhome.com.
Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
Greetings, galactic community. This is Suzanne Ross, host of Sci-Spy Radio, every Wednesday evening from 5 to 7 p.m. Pacific. Join me for this brand new show featuring a revolutionary new genre, Sci-Spy, merging science and spirituality to give us answers to the greatest mysteries of creation. Together, scientific discovery and spiritual revelation reveal the truth about who we are, where we came from, why we're here, and where we're going. Tune in to Sci-Spy Radio every Wednesday from 5 to 7 p.m. Pacific and discover the truth for yourself at thefringe.fm.
You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
Follow The Fringe FM on Facebook and Twitter at The Fringe FM. The Fringe FM loves hearing from you. Have a suggestion, comment, or question? We're all ears. Email talkback@thefringe.fm. Want to know what's on The Fringe FM? Check out our schedule at thefringe.fm.
This portion of the show is being brought to you by Ed's Home Psychoanalysis Kit. Why go crazy paying a real psychiatrist $100 an hour and more when you can do a reasonably accurate job by yourself in the comfort of your own living room or attic? That's Ed's Home Psychoanalysis Kit. Couch and ink blobs not included.
Welcome back to Lighting the Void. I'm your host, Joe Roop. We're live on the Fringe FM. Don't forget, after the program tonight, Ryan Gable from the Secret Teachings is going to be on. Tonight we've been discussing their new movie that they're releasing, Shoot the Moon movie that Jason has created with Crow7. We've discussed their show, Crow7 Radio. And before the break, we were discussing all of the symbology and all of the crazy stuff that's going on with film these days. And I had no idea, Jason, that you were such a huge Star Wars fan. We're friends, but that tells you how much I know about my friends. I didn't know you were that passionate about it. Were you? I wonder, while you were going through that rant, if you were really like yelling in the theater while this stuff was happening, you know?
No, I'm a very calm, chill person. Very zen is what a lot of people have called me. But this is the last little bit of my childhood that I was kind of clinging to for pleasant distractions from all the work that I do to try and help enlighten humanity. So it's always dark stuff that you're looking at, And the reason why I was going after all this, and I really didn't even get to Star Trek Discovery, which is the newest official Star Trek series. That one's just as bad too. With it's not just the SJW thing, man. It's the absolute destruction of. If you really want to back up and look at it, what they're trying to do is divide the family, the traditional family, and destroy it. And
is that what earlier you brought up the agenda, right? And I'm just, is that what you think is going on?
The greater agenda overall, it's all little pieces of a bigger puzzle.
Okay.
And what it really comes down to is this transhumanism agenda. And that's something we can get into if you would like. It's some pretty serious stuff, man. But the elite, of course, have this notion that they're going to merge with technology and become immortal gods. They are going to be Lucifer. They are going to be Lucifer. They are going to be the light. And that's what they're always after. If you really look into it, they are seeking light, and that light is their own godhood, if you want to kind of look at it from that point of view.
Well, I get what you're saying. We did a show about that, about who and what is Lucifer, and we kind of looked at the old mythologies and stuff, but really it kind of represented knowledge. But these cats are taken to knowledge. I think there's two kinds of knowledge, right? So there's spiritual knowledge, kind of inherent freedom type knowledge stuff, and then there's scientific knowledge. And it does seem like, I know it sounds crazy, folks, but it does seem like they're worshiping this stuff, and the priest class have moved from, preachers and bishops to scientists and people like Elon Musk, even if they don't know that that's what they're doing. And, yeah, it is creepy if you start looking into it, because it's not something that we can make up. It's not a conspiracy. It's happening right now as we're talking. They're gearing up to do all these things. And eventually they're going to want us to be cyborgs plugged into an AI machine that's constantly going, constantly flowing. That's what it feels like is coming for sure. Skynet,
You want to know what's going on, like a little taste of the inside of it? There's an interesting cat by the name of Zoltan Istvan. He ran for the presidency in 2016. He represents the Transhumanist Libertarian Party. I don't know if I'm saying that exactly correct, but that's the general idea. And he is really, really, really a public face for this. But he doesn't seem to be directly tied in with some of the other cats that are on about this, which are people like Ray Kurzweil, who even gets William Shatner, the original Captain Kirk. He's even on board with a lot of this prolonging life long enough so that we can live to see the singularity kind of thing. This is what they're really on about, man. But here's the thing. What I was referring to the agenda, so people don't think I was just ranting because they've destroyed my childhood TV shows. Do you think that they would be doing this and then losing money? Would you do anything with a business? Would you make the worst decisions ever over and over and over again when you're a company that always made millions or maybe even billions of dollars when you're talking about Disney? Do you really think you're that stupid that you might make one blunder and realize, crap, this is not what the people want? Let's do a completely different direction and really do some study groups. Let's do some focus groups and find out what they want and all that. I can promise you that what people want is not something like The Last Jedi. And then Rian Johnson, the writer-director of that movie, has the gall to attack the fans all over the internet and make fun of them and say horrible things. Man, these are not good business decisions. You don't let your actors and directors and things like that spout off their politics and their points of view. Nobody gives a snot what you think, man. We don't care about your politics. Everybody's politics are so all over the place. Nobody wants to be preached at in movies and TV shows and all that. It's escapism. They're there to get away from that nonsense for a little while. They just want to escape. Like Doctor Who was pretty much the last thing I watched, and I saw it creeping in for years now. Little by little, they were starting to really get in there. And the last season with Peter Capaldi, before they gave it to the woman and completely changed everything and really destroyed it, it was all over the place already. We just still happen to have a male doctor. But I got through it because I watched it. Okay, now at least I can discuss it. I won't watch the current stuff with Jodie Whittaker. That woman is an outspoken fourth wave feminist. She's all about that the white patriarchy are nothing but evil people, and you've been in control long enough, and we're going to destroy you. So they're taking over all these properties and doing what they can and all that sort of thing. But there's a higher agenda above. She's just a mouthpiece. Above that, when you start really pulling back and looking what this is all about, it's the destruction of the traditional family unit. And this started in the 1960s. You ready for this? You want to tie this whole conversation together, my friend?
Hit me with it, man. Hit me with it.
So when they started really shaking up society in the mid-60s, you started having the kids. Now, the parents and the grandparents, of course, would be a lot more square. This is generally the World War II generation's kids, what they call the baby boomers now. They are compared to the hippies and all the people who were the beatniks and all that. Those people would be square to them. They're not into the cool stuff, and then the drug culture's coming in. And we know it's admitted. There's papers all over the place, not to mention all the people who have admitted being part of the CIA programs for LSD and all that. The Grateful Dead, all of this stuff. This all ties together. That was the beginning of the destruction of Western society and the traditional family unit, because you break up the family unit with the kids being so different from the parents, and then you're drugging out that whole generation, and God, the things that happen even after that. You've got this major divide going on. Then all of a sudden you start having divorce rates going through the roof, and the state is now the parent, and you're sticking your kids down in front of the television to be the one watching them, so that you're a single parent now, so you have to go do what you got to do to keep the household going. They've been destroying us badly. If you look at 1950s Leave It to Beaver, and then you jump ahead to, say, even the Brady Bunch, which started in 1969, now you're talking about the dad, who's the only one who worked, had the kids, and he came home and, Beav, tell me what happened today, and all that sort of thing. And the mom was the homemaker, and that was perfectly fine. Everybody was happy with their roles. Not saying that women can't have jobs and things like that. I don't think any realistic, rational person has a problem with that. But this was just the general traditional family unit. And also, they've been destroying our economy at the same time as far as Western civilization is concerned, because back then the dad could have a half-decent middle-class job, and you could have all the normal things and be able to afford to live a comfortable life, right? I think everybody knows that this was true. Now, both people, whomever is in the family, has to work their butts off to try and make ends meet. It's not just a single parent. And in the older days, of course, it was traditionally the dad. It wasn't always, but it's usually the dad. It's usually the father. So you have the Leave It to Beaver in the 50s, and looking back, that's like, oh, those guys were so square, ha-ha. And then you jump ahead to let's say, 1969 with the Brady Bunch, and they've already been implementing all this stuff. What is the Brady Bunch family? It's actually 2 divorced parents with 3 children each getting together. And what do you start seeing in the Brady Bunch that you never saw in earlier television? It's very cute and clever when you think about it. If you look at I Love Lucy or any of the earlier stuff, the parents, of course, they'd have the same bedroom, but they slept in separate beds.
Oh, that's right. They did, didn't they?
Yes, they did. In the Brady Bunch, you see plenty of scenes where they're in their queen or king, whatever size bed, together. And there are plenty of scenes that I remember that was shown over and over and over again. They're bringing they're tearing down that sexual thing that was kind of taboo. They're tearing it all down in the 60s. And all of a sudden, love the one you're with, and just open sexuality, and they destroyed us. And then they tore the economy.
My dad used to say that stuff too, because when I was a kid, my dad was one of those guys that he wouldn't let me watch The Simpsons, right? Or Married with Children or anything like that. And I was like, Pop, why can't I watch these flicks? They're hilarious. And he's like, all of these flicks are just tearing down the man. I know you don't see it, but they're trying to tear down the man like he's just some big dummy or something and remove.
That is.
And I was thinking, man, these, I hated him saying that because I knew he was right, because the whole idea of the show was the guy was dumb and, and stuff like that. But
yeah,
they were still funny. They made him really entertaining.
Well, they did, and that's how they get you, too. And it was subtle back then because Al Bundy's funny. It's funny when he sits on the couch and he's got a dumb look on his face and he sticks his hand down his pants while drooling at the television.
The original fat shamer, by the way, was Al Bundy.
There you go.
They took him off the air, though.
But this is it. They got your attention, didn't they? You didn't realize what they were programming you with. Jumping back to the Brady Bunch, they hadn't completely destroyed everything because the dad, ironically played by a gay man, but that wasn't an issue at the time. But he was an architect in that show, and he obviously made enough money as an architect that he raised a decent-sized house with his wife being a homemaker and 6 children, plus paying a housekeeper on his architect's salary.
Damn.
That's unheard of now.
Yeah. So, okay, so the larger agenda, so let's say they tear the normal family apart, right? Then what do they, once they tear it apart, what are they implementing? What are they going to put in place?
It makes things easier. The bottom line is it makes us easier to control. But now we're seeing several generations later, the kids today, man, oh my God, the stuff they're pushing on them. They've got them all screwed up in their sexuality. They're telling them you don't have to decide what gender you are, like all this stuff. And I don't think anybody who's a rational, realistic human being gives a crap what your sexuality is, whether you're male or female, whether you're gay or straight. I don't think anybody really cares. I certainly don't. I've had plenty of gay friends.
Yeah, I don't
care what you do. It's cool. But the realistic number is that true homosexuals and bisexuals and things like that, maybe bisexuals are a little more, but true homosexuals, where that is the lifestyle they absolutely have been programmed with since the day they were born. It's in their genetics, however you want to explain that. They're gay. They are attracted to the same sex. That's less than 5% of the population.
But I see what you're saying. Yeah. Well, I've even got a friend of my family's that I almost said his name, but I got in trouble for saying his name last time, who feels the way you do. He even feels the way you do. He's gay, always has been, was born gay, but he feels exactly the way you do. He's like, man, they're tearing us apart. They're making things super confusing. This ultra sensitive role to everybody's gender and stuff is ridiculous. Right. So that came out of, that came out of a friend of mine's mouth when we had a conversation, and he's been gay his whole life. So that ought to tell you something, right? They want you to feel guilty if you combat it at all. That's another thing that they do.
Of course.
You're not allowed to say anything, or you're not allowed to say what worries you, especially if you have children, because you're going to offend somebody, And I'm going to tell you right now, when it comes to my kid, I don't give a
sexist or misogynist.
Right.
That's what happens. You open your mouth one little bit, and one of these SJW maniacs are going to jump down your throat.
Yeah, I've seen it. My son actually got into a little scuffle at school about this, by the way, because they got into a conversation, and he was like, dude, I'm a boy. And they were saying that something like they felt attacked, like verbally or abused or something, because he called somebody a boy. And he's like, dude, you're a boy, though. Doesn't matter if you're gay or not. You're just a boy. You're born with boy parts or whatever. So I think, when you ask me if I have to guess, man, I would guess that you're a boy. And he got a lot of crap for that. And then he came home to me and asked me why he got in trouble. And I live in the South, man. So I can't imagine where it is, how bad it is in other places,
Right. Yeah, the South is generally more conservative and more Christian oriented. I've lived here 7 years, so I definitely see that. But there's still gay people here, and they're still openly gay. It's still the 21st century. I don't think that in this day and age, if you want to talk real for a second, I don't think most decent human beings give a snot about anything. They don't care what religion you are. They don't care what color you are. They don't care what sexuality you are. As long as you're not doing anything to hurt themselves, you're not trying to push something on me, nobody cares anymore. And if they do, they're probably just old bigoted assholes. You're not going to change anyway. It's like, yeah, there are going to be some people who are always going to have some prejudice to something. It's unfortunately, humans are incredibly tribal, and not everybody is ready to just be open and accepting about everything. I try my best to be. I still see things that bug me, but it's whatever. I'm human. I'm going to make mistakes. I try my best to be a decent human being and as accepting of everybody as I can, except for one thing, and I have no problem putting this on the record. Pedophiles. You hurt a child, and that's it. That is the worst thing you can do, is destroy innocence.
Yeah, and I've even seen people that try to, this isn't happening now, but there were people that were trying to sympathize with pedophiles, like saying, oh, this is just a psychological disorder and they need help. Yeah, they need help. They need exterminated.
Well, I agree with
man.
that, but that doesn't mean you sympathize with them. It has to be dealt with.
Yeah.
Those kind of people cannot be allowed to be around children, period.
No, and some of this stuff worries me too, man. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't talk a lot about it a lot because honestly, I'm like one of those guys that I really don't care what you do with your life. But when you do try to inflict it on my intermediate family, or you're trying to force us to make a decision we're not comfortable with making, or I got to worry about what bathroom I send my son into and stuff, that's a problem. And we shouldn't have to worry about that. From a simple point of view, we've never had to worry about that. It's never been a real problem, not even for most of the majority of gay people out there. So it's like somebody has made it a bigger problem. Somebody has made it a problem that it really was not a problem before. You know, I mean, I'm not saying it wasn't a problem. There weren't people that were confused or whatever, but they've made it a lot bigger problem in the media than it really is. Because most of the people I know, straight, gay, trans, whatever, and I know all of them, they're fine. Just like you say, they're fine with their lives. They do their own thing. They don't really care. But it's the media that's making us do all these things when we give into this stuff, and they're making us pick fights with each other so they can control us. That's
divide and conquer, brother.
That's it. Yeah. But the transhumanist thing, that's an interesting point, because that's something that Kurzweil had predicted a long time ago. You remember when he predicted all this stuff, which makes me wonder about him.
He's not just predicting it, dude. He's not just predicting it. He's working with the biggest company that's implementing it, which is Google.
Yeah, he's didn't Google hire him?
He's one of their chief engineers. Yeah, he's one of their chief engineers. So he's one of the people behind it all, implementing it, and he's got this. I don't want to be mean, but it seems like it's delusion that he's going to keep taking a zillion pills a day and doing everything he possibly can to live long enough for the technology to be there for true life extension. And he wants to hold out, and he's about 70 years old, if I remember correctly, somewhere in that ballpark. So he needs to hold out another 20, 30 years for when this true singularity comes. And the singularity, as he describes it, is the AI truly becoming an AI, a true artificial, self-aware thinking machine that human beings can interface with and become human plus. That's what they're going for. And you're seeing it now. What are they doing with all of this crap where they're confusing the kids with their gender and what they are? What they're doing is they're basically making them into its. They're making them into machines, if you want to look at it. If you can see what I'm saying, they're making them so that they're not anything. They're not a man. They're not a woman. They're an it. So it's a lot easier to get an it to want to start replacing body parts and start interfacing with computers when you're not identifying as a man or a woman anymore. And you see it. The Doctor Who thing is another good example with all this crazy gender-bending sickness. No, the Doctor is just the Doctor. The body is male or female, and it's irrelevant. Yeah, well, if it's so relevant, they wouldn't be making such a big deal about it.
The immortality thing, right? Yeah. So that has definitely been on the horizon, according to all these leading transhumanists. They believe that future people will be able to live forever. Biological immortality, or more precise would be that you never grow old or whatever, right? So they're actually studying this stuff. They think they can achieve it by the advanced genetic engineering, but the tech that it would take to live forever is going to be, number one, it's going to be super expensive. So if you're even thinking about that,
you're not going to live forever in your body. That's the thing. You got to listen to what they're saying. It's not about getting your human body to live. They just want to live long enough. All these creepy old men, they just want to live long enough for this singularity time to come about so that they can interface. It's their consciousness. It's what they think is their actual inner self. That's the part that's going to be immortal. The physical human body is going to die. Right. Think about that.
That's like that movie Get Out. Holy crap. And that'd be nuts, right? So it's just the consciousness that they're worried about.
Think about that. If your consciousness is in a machine, who owns the machines then? Who controls the machines? You want to talk about the ultimate control system? They could put you in hell with the flick of a switch.
Battlestar Galactica, but worse, right? I get that.
Far worse.
Now, this guy, I talked about this on the show not too long ago. This guy, Dr. Ian Pearson, predicted that they're going to be getting these treatments by the 2050s. I mean, we're probably going to see this stuff. That's what they think. They're really pushing for this, man. but it's supposed to be like super expensive. So only the rich people are going to get it. But I don't know. That's the stuff I find in the news. And I've had that conversation with Matt yesterday. We don't really know what's real when it comes to looking this stuff up, but we got to take with our experience. And my experience tells me, my intuition tells me that I think you're right, man. That's what's coming.
Well, I could tell you that we're starting to see it in media too. You're going to start seeing, I'm going to make a prediction here for you. You are going to start seeing more people who are transhumanists in mainstream media. They're going to be actors and actresses and things like that. Mark my words, because I'm already seeing it. I actually know somebody personally who won't talk to me anymore, but she's starting to be in more and more things. She's an actress. And you're going to start seeing people with replaced body parts, and they're going to start normalizing all of this stuff, and they're going to keep upping the game and upping the game and upping the game. More and more things are going to be cybernetic, or they're going to be computer, whatever. It's all normalizing this nonsense so that when they're finally ready for the transhumanist switch, everyone is going to be so accepting of it because they've been seeing it on the screen for years and years and years now that it's not going to be a big deal. Because what do they do for all of these things, all these agendas that they've been pushing on us for decades? They normalize it to you so that it's not a big deal.
This sounds crazy. Doesn't this sound crazy? This sounds crazy.
I could pull up a picture right now of the girl and show you. She's from Louisiana. I'm not going to say her name because I don't want to implicate somebody, and I don't want to be rude.
Right.
But Wayne and I have had this conversation more than once because I showed her to him. He's like, "Oh my God, you're right."
This is freaky, man. You got me. I can't even think straight right now with all this stuff. Like, the only reason why I really worry about it, Jason, is if it was just me, man, and this is going to sound incredibly selfish, but if it was just me, I would just die and be like, see, whatever you guys get, you deserve it. But I got a kid, man, that's going to grow up in these times.
So do I, and that's why I'm so passionate about fighting the bad guys.
Jesus. Well,
I'll tell you what. I'll prove this to you. When we go to break next, before we come back, I'm going to show you this person I'm speaking about, and we'll keep it on the down low who she is, but I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. And then you're going to know that. Well, I'm going to show you her IMDb.
Okay. And
I'll tell you what her name is, and you can look her up and just keep it to yourself, because like I said, I don't want to be mean or rude to anybody, especially a girl, but you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about, and you're going to see it happening more and more, I promise you.
Nothing like scaring the hell out of you at midnight, right?
Hey, man, at least I can make good radio, right? And but the thing is, this isn't make-believe. I'm going to prove it to you. And then you can come on, and then you'll know, too. Because Jason Lindgren showed it to you, and you're like, oh, my God, it sounded crazy. And then he showed me, and he's totally right.
All right. Well, hope I'm ready for all this, man. Well, yeah, we do got to take a break. We'll be right back for more from Jason Lindgren. Some intense stuff. You guys stay with us.
This portion of the show is being brought to you by gravity. When wanting to walk around on the side of our planet without inconveniently being flung to the far reaches of the solar system, more people choose gravity than any other force in the universe. So remember, when something has got you down, it's probably gravity. Clean, dependable, low maintenance gravity.
From Studio 303, it's the Stranger Than Fiction News right here on the Fringe FM, bringing light to the stories that surround us. Lasers could be able to beam messages directly into a listener's ear, like whispering a secret from afar, according to U.S. scientists. The laser interacts with water vapor in the air as scientists created sounds in a localized spot that were loud enough to be picked up by human hearing if aimed near the listener's ear. This is the first time this technique has been used safely around humans. It is hoped that the directed sounds could one day be used for headphone-free TV watching without disturbing others, or they could warn people of danger discreetly in situations like an active shooter attack. The lasers will not cause burns to the eyes or skin, due to the fact that the scientists finding the exact wavelength that allows it to be risk-free. Researchers tested out the setup on themselves in a laboratory, putting their ears near the beam to pick up the sound. Physicist Charles Wynn said, "You move your head around and there's a couple-inch zone where, well, there you go. It's pretty cool." Source, The Sun UK. And Pennsylvania birdwatchers spot a stunning rare cardinal with both male and female traits that split right down the middle of its body. What is known as bilateral gynandromorph with male and female traits, well, this happens when female eggs with 2 nuclei is double fertilized by 2 sperm. The amazing male-female chimera was spotted in a Pennsylvania backyard. Male cardinals have a bright red coloring, while females have a much duller appearance. Source, Daily Mail Online. And lungworm blood. It's coming to a pharmacy near you. After years of research and clinical trials, a French startup, Hemarina, is almost ready to start selling worm blood for organ transplants. The hemoglobin of the Arenicola marina is a highly effective oxygen carrier, a property that has lent itself to exploration by the biomedical industry. Source, Hockey Eye Magazine. And 2 motorists in Kansas encounter a Bigfoot. One of the 2 sisters claims that they were driving on Interstate 24 when they spotted the being. Quote, "Around 9:35 p.m., I was telling my sister, who was driving, to be careful about deer running across the road because we had seen a few. Some didn't even look at the truck that we were in. Most were focused on the cornfield," she told the BFRO about the August 2017 alleged encounter in Mitchell County. "Suddenly," she says, "a big buff gorilla-looking man hopped out on all 4s out of the cornfield. It jumped from the cornfield to my left, in front of me, and onto the left side of the road. It stood up and then disappeared into the cornfield on the other side of the highway. My sister wanted to stop, but I asked her to continue driving." The woman described it as 8 feet tall with an ape-like body. Its hair was reportedly about 3 inches long, with some bald areas on the chest and face. You could see the muscles. The hair was dark, kind of reddish. Source, cryptozoologynews.com. And time for this edition's fun fact. The name Australia contains 3-letter A's. Each one of them is pronounced differently. And that wraps it up for another edition of the Stranger Than Fiction News right here on the Fringe FM. I'm Vance Nesbitt, anchor and news sorcerer.
You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
This portion of the show is being brought to you by Ed's House of Politicians. The next time you're in the mood for a good political discussion, just stop by any of our one convenient location, and we'll rent, lease, or sell a politician to waffle on the issue of your choice. Remember our motto, you provide the fence, and we'll provide the politician to sit on it.
Now, I know what some of you guys are thinking. You're thinking, why is Joe Roop, the guy that talks about the esoteric and the occult and magic and conscious exploration and all of this stuff, these past couple of shows have been talking about things that are heavily truth-based, even possibly what some might call conspiratorial? Well, because, to be perfectly honest with you, there are a couple of things out there that worry me. And if you have been listening to this show for quite some time, I know some of you are new because I've been getting your emails, but if you have been listening to it for quite some time, that I brought up all this stuff a lot. When it came to artificial intelligence, transhumanism, this kind of stuff worried me quite a bit. It was like, I know Dennis in the Spreaker chat can tell you, it was almost every day I would talk about it when I did the news because it worried me. Now, these things are more and more validating, and when I look at just how powerful the media is and how they control us on an everyday basis, every hour basis of our lives, I bet it would be a real scary figure to sit back and look at how much time we spend fighting each other on topics on social media and things of that nature instead of living our lives. It would probably be more than we actually sleep, and they know that. Another thing that Matt Landman turned me on to is seeing the pyramid structure with the corporations, how they kept buying each other out, especially broadcast corporations, until it's limited to just a few. Now think about that, just how powerful that is. Yeah, we like to do consciousness exploration, and we talk about that quite a bit, but we still got to live in the real world. And this is something that I wanted to talk to you about with Jason. This is a big question everybody asks, right? And then they just kind of give up on the topic because they don't know, like, who they and them is. Like, who are the people at the top of this controlling all of this stuff? Now, in my mind, I think it's people that are super, like, greedy beyond levels that we can understand. But above that, when it comes to things like archons and reptilians and all of this other stuff, I don't know what it is, but I know that it's possible that there could be something else controlling this. Because like you said earlier, on a day-to-day basis, when we go out and we meet individuals, people are just, they're not bad people. They're not evil, right? But when we look at these subjects and the subject matter, we're tearing each other apart. So it's not hard to see that we're being controlled. But what is at the top of it? Is it just money, or is it something bigger?
Well, let's put bookends on what we were talking about before the break, because it's going to lead into me answering your question. Generally speaking, because obviously you didn't get a chance to look into it too much, was I correct about what I was telling you
100%.
About the young lady?
Yeah.
So you now know that I wasn't just talking out my ass, that I was giving you something and then I gave you evidence for it.
Yep, that's true. It's kind of blew me away, actually. But yeah, you were correct on that.
Okay. Which is cool. I'm not trying to brag. I just want people to know that I made a big, bold statement, and I wanted everyone to know that I said something big and profound. I showed Joe the evidence, and there you have it. This is all part of the game. Let's talk about the media real quick, because we've done a lot of work on this on Crow7 Radio. Most mainstream media is controlled by what's generally known as the Big Six, and this is how they control the narrative. But not only that, I actually got information from somebody who used to work on the inside, and we did a show on this. Crow and I found out how they disseminate the information about 80% of the time, and it's through companies called they distribute news packages. And the biggest one of them is called PR Newswire, but there are others that also do it too, and I'm not remembering all the companies off the top of my head. I know there's another one that's the next biggest after PR Newswire, but the one that the gentleman we interviewed worked for PR Newswire. So have you ever seen those YouTube videos where people have put together clips from local news stations all saying the same damn thing? It's just got their own little funny little local flair and accent. Have you ever seen any of those?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, now I know how they do it. It's because companies like PR Newswire have everything ready to go. People, most of the time, there aren't journalists anymore. Journalists are almost extinct. They're handed these prepackaged news bites that the transcript is there, and the video and audio and all those things, whatever the article happens to be about that they're discussing, is all ready to go. So all it has to do is be loaded into the teleprompters for your local flair to get it out to their local masses, and all the video is all ready to go, so everyone's seeing the same thing, already edited and as professional as they could get it. That's how they're doing this, guys. This is how they're getting the information. The control structure is keeping the information flow going in the direction that they want it to. That's how this works. But of course, this is only one of many steps in this giant pyramid.
Yeah, that's the thing is, well, how far does it go up, right? Does it go up to places like David Icke talk about, where it's something else controlling everything? Because it's hard for me to believe that one human being, I mean, I've talked to rich people, I've talked to every kind of person there is I can think of, man, and they're all just genuine, as far as I know, good people. But when it comes to people like the Rothschilds and people that are running everything, that these folks, we all know that these folks have petitioned and are totally for and hold signs up for things like New World Order and stuff like that. So do we really know what's going on? That's the thing about it. I used to be one of those guys, Jason. I was like, reptilians, like get out of here. And I still kind of laugh at it every now and then. But the more I think about this pyramid thing, I'm like, what the hell is going on? You know?
I can try to and give you some information on, excuse me, on that. I don't think it's reptilians. I think that's silly. I think that could be used as, what's the word? Like an
a red
archetype
herring or something.
Maybe. I don't want to accuse anybody of being a shill or a red herring. That's not my cup of tea. Is David Icke full of it on purpose or otherwise? I don't know. And he seems like a nice enough fellow. He seems very passionate about what he does. He certainly became a laughing stock because of what he did in the 90s and into the 2000s. He's very respected now and sells out like he's a rock star, like arenas and things, which is great. I'm happy that he's getting a message across. And the interesting thing is a huge amount of what he puts out is actually really good stuff. He's a little silly in my opinion, and this is what I was talking about earlier with the Jordan Maxwell thing, which I like most of it, and then some of it's just silly hooey. I just don't think the reptilians thing is real. As a matter of fact, Crow and I have dissected where a lot of this alien stuff came from. And do you know where reptilians, the concept of the reptilian, like the humanoid reptile thing, came from? It came from the 1920s, the early 20th century writings of the original Conan the Barbarian. That was the first reptilian kind of thing that they drew off of. If you start looking at all the aliens that are put out there as archetypes, like the Greys and all those things, they come from science fiction somewhere in generally the 20th century. They all come from somewhere, and we have an episode where we dissect it. Look for the episode on aliens on Crow7 Radio. The first hour will tell you probably most of what you want to know already for free. And it's just it's there's no evidence for it, man. I'm not saying that there aren't things in the sky, because I'm putting out a film with dozens and dozens of clips showing strange objects in the sky that unexplainable. They're there, they're real, they're tangible. Don't know what they are. You can't call them UFO. Well, you can call them UFOs. You can't call them aliens because we can't prove that. They're just unidentified flying objects. They are craft that are obviously up there somewhere. Where exactly, who's entirely sure. But there's something, and they're real. So Crow thinks,
but just because there's something up there and it's real doesn't mean that it's not a government operation. It doesn't mean that it's not anomalies. Exactly. You know, it doesn't always have to be a freaking alien ship, you know.
Correct. That's actually what I was going to get to. Crow says he believes it's all human technology, and he says as much in one of the interview segments in the film. I believe he blatantly says that he believes that that's human technology, not some sort of little green man. And I'm pretty much there with him until I see some reason to think that these are aliens or extra dimensional beings or whatever. I have to go with the easiest explanation, which is that there's black ops programs that have higher technology than what you can go down to the airport and see. I think that's common sense, right?
Right. And if we here at Lighting the Void, we like to say our experience tells our truth more than anything. If experience tells us anything, when we look back in the history of the intelligence and military operations, that they have been 40 to 50 years minimum ahead of time in technology on a lot of different things. So you can imagine what they're hiding from us right now. They had drones out in the 60s, unmanned drones, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, and who knows if there's an accurate, they're this amount of years ahead. It's obvious they're going to be ahead because the technology has to come from somewhere. It has to be R&D'd at some point. It's like the Blackbird, for instance. They didn't even admit they had that for a very long time. I forget how many years.
Talking about the SR-71?
Yeah, exactly. That was around since the 1950s. They were flying that thing around, and I don't remember what year they finally admitted to it, but that thing was in the skies for years before any average person would have heard about it, you know? So that's just an example of a very public piece of technology that was light years ahead of anything that anyone would have known about in the 50s or 60s, you know?
Yeah. And I know what you mean about journalism too. Like even some of the journalists that I follow, that I know that are good journalists, you still don't know like Bob Woodward and people like that, you still don't know if they're not influenced. You don't know. They could have stacks and stacks of documents and data on all these different presidents and stuff, but they still probably put their bias in a little bit. So the only thing that you can do is research this stuff for yourself. But the transhumanism thing, back to that kind of, I think is totally plausible, right? Because what we do is we look past, and what we're willing to do a lot of the times, especially in this genre of the paranormal and conspiratorial stuff, is we look past the power of greed. You know, we don't think that greed can be enough to do some of these crazy things, but I'm telling you, man, it is. Some of these people, they taste so much money and power that they're willing to do it for generations, for their bloodlines and their families and stuff, and they'll keep it going. And if they can control us, and which they are controlling us, and know that they can do it in the future, power, they just keep sucking it up. And a lot of people want to blame it on aliens and archons and reptilians and stuff. And I'm like, man, to me, it's just greed. You know, it could be just nasty old greed, right?
Well, I think that they've had so much money for so long that it doesn't matter anymore. And this is actually what I was getting at earlier with Disney losing money. I think we've hit the crossroads where the money doesn't matter anymore. And Crrow and I have actually talked about this on more than one occasion. How much money are they willing to lose to push the agenda? Because it's getting a little obvious right now, especially when you start looking at all these intellectual properties. How can they all be pushing the same kind of crap into the narrative that people don't want? Like the vast majority. Sure, you're always going to get people that are cool with it, but the vast majority of people don't want it, aren't going to support it, aren't going to buy the merchandise. There's no money being made. And I'm just going to say it again. How do you lose money on Star Wars? You got to be really freaking stupid to lose money on Star Wars. But they are. They are in the tens of millions of dollars. People aren't buying the merchandise because they don't want what they're pushing. And guess what? They're still pushing it. Doctor Who is making another season when nobody wants this. Like, so few people want what they gave the public in season 11. But they're making another one with the exact same crew. The exact same crew. Every actor and actress. Same showrunner. Same writers. Exact same team. They're making another replica of what they just did that was an absolute dismal failure. The merchandise isn't selling. Isn't it plain and obvious at this point that the agenda is the thing now? The money doesn't freaking matter.
Yeah, they got too much of it. Like, it doesn't really matter anymore. I see what you're saying. So what's the next agenda? To live forever? Is that what it is? Is it immortality?
Well, this is where I was leading you. These things all tie together. These are all pieces of the bigger puzzle. That's why I showed you that young lady. Like, all of these things tie together.
I got you.
Like, you got to step. This is hard. I've been doing this for a lot of years, so to me, it all kind of works like a sky clock ticking around in my head. But you've got to be able to step back and look at all of the individual things going on and realize it's part of the bigger picture. They're steering the narrative to where they want it to go. Now, to answer your original question, because I did kind of ramble a little bit, but I was trying to keep it all together, I have no idea exactly what is at the very top of the pyramid, what that eye above the capitalist pyramid actually is. But I do have strong suspicions. I do know that there is a technocracy behind everything that, as far as the public face of it, are people like the Rothschilds and Rockefellers and all these old money families are part of. But there is no doubt whatsoever that these kinds of people are into a very, very dark spiritual element. That is what they really serve. When you hear George Bush talking about all those things, well, because they admit it. They blatantly say it. I mean, Skull and Bones alone is just one of the many Saturnalian death cult kind of things that are all very similar. A lot of their ceremonies and things are very similar. The swearing of the blood oaths to Lucifer, all these things,
okay,
those are real things. So we know that the people who are part of this structure, wherever they happen to be on the pyramid, there's a dark spiritual element to it. And I personally have witnessed dark spiritual elements. I know something exists beyond the material. I haven't just seen UFOs. I've seen spiritual things. So I know there is a spiritual world, and I'm using that word incredibly broad, very broad stroke here I'm painting, because I have never seen anything that proves to me any one religion gets it right, other than the fact that we're saying that there is something beyond the physical universe. There is an energy that is on a wavelength that is higher than light, that functions above time and space, because spiritual things seem to be able to transcend the normal linear time. I think most people would agree with that. Ghosts have always been reported as phasing in and out, or seem to be repeating certain time cycles, or whatever it happens to be. I don't need to tell people ghost stories. They've all heard this stuff. So whatever spirituality really is, it seems to exist on a wavelength. If we want to look at it from a scientific point of view, it exists on a wavelength that's higher than light. And my assumption has always been that whatever God truly is, it's the highest point, it's the highest frequency where there are no peaks and troughs anymore in that waveform, that it is unmoving, it is pure absolute. And I think that God is pure love. Whatever God truly is, if you want to even use the word God, I think it is pure, absolute, unconditional love. And that's what human beings strive for. Except these dark people who want to be God. They want to be a part of it. Well, that's the wrong way of putting it.
So as an occultist myself, I can tell you that I kind of understand what you're talking about, because here's the thing, man. Magic works, right? But we call it magic because we don't understand it, right? And what happens
to a point.
Yeah, but we do now. But quantum entanglement, all this stuff, we're starting to understand some things now, right? But
intention is energy.
Right, exactly. Intention and focus is definitely, that's right. And so the occultists of back then, they came up with all these different systems of stuff to be able to, enhance their focus, whether it was ceremony, using the symbolism and all the stuff. And people really didn't understand where it all came from, right? But they would use it so that it worked. The thing what happens to the magician, though, is at some certain point, and I'm sure your buddy Wayne knows all about this, as they're ascending in consciousness and understanding of these things, two things happen. Megalomania can happen, as it did within the case of Aleister Crowley, or they start understanding that whatever this is comes from an untapped source of, like you say, God, like the highest frequency ever. And so they start understanding that this all comes from something. But they go one of two routes, right? And we know that it works. That's what I'm trying to say. So if that works, then we know everything can be magically influenced. And again, we only call it magic because we don't understand it. That's just a word for something that we don't understand, that it's like supernatural.
It's another broad stroke word. We're saying magic, but what we're meaning is things to put intention out into the universe. I always likened it, since I was a teenager and I started studying this stuff, to kind of like a computer program. You're casting a spell because you want a certain thing to happen. So you're writing a small piece of software. I want this thing to happen, whatever it happens to be. I want riches to come to me in this way. I want this to succeed, whatever it is. And you send that out into the universe. And if you've put enough intention behind it and you've bent your will to make the energy go in that direction, hopefully, if you've done it all right, the universe will start flowing. And it's not instantaneous. That's not the way it seems to work. It seems to work in like ebbs and flows, again, kind of like wavelengths, peaks and troughs. That's the way I see it in my mind. And if things are going the right way and you've put enough into it, things start shifting in the direction you want to go. And this is why, and this is again tying things back together to what we were discussing earlier. Why do we see all this symbolism and hand signs and all that crazy crap? Why do we see that in all of the mainstream media? Because they're casting spells. Because it's their intention. It's what they want. They are expressing their dominion over us. This is ours, and this is what we want. The numbers and everything, they're using everything they've got. They don't have to have people on screen saying it. It's everywhere else anyway. And what are they doing? They're using our mass consciousness. They're bending our energy to do what they want.
There you go.
Scary when you think about it, brother.
And this isn't like a crazy notion. I mean, even Grant Morrison came out and talked about, as another word for what you're talking about, is hypersigils. Instead of just drawing a symbol on a piece of paper and hoping that it manifests, they would put things into artwork, right? Something that everybody's eyes would see, something that everybody would focus on. And so he put what he wanted to manifest into his comic book, The Invisibles, which is a fantastic comic book, but he knew that everybody's eyes would see it and things would start manifesting. And so these guys, they're happy, like, oh man, this stuff works. Robert Anton Wilson, all these stuff, that what they're talking about really works. Well, that's great. But now that everybody knows that hypersigils are real and that you can put it into artwork and comic books, what the hell else are they putting it into? Or what is the one damn thing that everybody is into? Number one is social media, and number two is streaming movies, like streaming video, Netflix, things like that, all these movies. So if you understood these principles, you could easily, yeah, absolutely. And if you understand this, what you got to know, as popular as the subject is now, some of these cats do, that they can put it into this stuff and it becomes a supremely, largely powerful hyper sigil, right? That's something that's even crazier. And then you guys need to read Wayne's book, The Alchemical Tech Revolution, because it'll blow your mind, man. It's really made me question a lot of the stuff.
I can't recommend that enough.
Do what? Say it again?
Wayne McCroy is absolutely brilliant, and he has done so much work. You have to read his book. I can't plug him enough. And it's not a plug in like, oh, I want to make him money. No, the guy is telling you what their plans are, and he backs it up with documented evidence. That's why he and I get along so well. He's better than me, I think, really, with how much documentation he's got.
Yeah, and then when he comes on the program and he's trying to explain the Hermetic principles, and even then we don't, it's like, I don't want to confuse people, but I want to explain these Hermetic principles. Like, that is just the basics. That's like the starting ground of all this. If you get into, like, what he wrote about the Nobium compounds, that's pretty scary. And the quantum gravitational effects and stuff like that. That was towards the end of his book, if I remember correctly. Some of the stuff that could possibly be experimented with CERN. Now, these were his theories, but these theories were based on a lot of esoteric and occult, and I would say even facts that are happening now. That there's some type of intelligence out there that could be coming through this gateway, so to speak. And the alchemists, because we've talked about alchemy quite a bit, have been aware of this stuff since the beginning of time. Right? They know that there's some type of transcendence they've hit it very well. And, like all of these paranormal things that happen to us, I've been saying that they could be like interfacing. Maybe they're interfacing, but they could be walk-ins, and so to speak.
Possibly.
But I wish I could, I got to get Wayne back on here, man, so he could speak some of this for me, but he talks
we should do
about
a show together. He and I together are quite fun.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, but he talks about like the transhumanist artificial intelligent world brain that could be linked to our brains via the 5G network and maybe the gateway. And I finally got the book here for the incursion of the archons into our reality, or the return of the Nephilim, which is something we've had books about. Like, yeah, there were Nephilim. Okay, there were Nephilim. Well, that had to be aliens. Okay, now what? I would tell you to look at Wayne's book. There might be a better explanation for all of this. I can't read the book on the air, so just get the damn book. You know what I mean? So.
Well, there's a term I came up with a while ago in reference to the technocracy and what they're doing now in modern times, and it's occult technology. That's what they're doing with all this stuff. They're coming up with technological means of steering spiritual matters, or you could call it spiritual technology, however you want to word it. But it's that notion that the things that they're doing are manifesting the realities they want to bring about.
Yeah. And so, for instance, when I learned about what Baphomet was, I learned about what Baphomet was from reading Eliphas Levi, right? That it was really a symbol for as above, so below. And then it was a symbol for occult science. I'll just put it to you that way. That's what it represents. It represents every aspect of all of the Hermetic principles and all of the occult teachings and all of that stuff that we talk about in one symbol. But it's scary because there's a goat head that's pointing up to the sky and the finger pointing to the ground. However, it does not mean that it can't be used for evil also, because a principle is a principle is a principle. It's just like taking a knife. You can cut tomatoes with it, or you can gut somebody. Right. So these people understand this stuff. And I think now that we understand it as a society, and there's more people talking about magic and mysticism and actually experimenting with this stuff more now than ever, which I still think is kind of dangerous, even though we talk about it a lot, that has to tell you that this stuff has been going on for quite some time, because usually when we come around to knowing something as a society, it's already been going on for a long damn time.
What else is the Baphomet, though? Let me point something else out to you here if you want to see a fine example of agenda in mainstream media. The Baphomet is a hermaphrodite, isn't it?
Yep, it absolutely is. It represents male and female energy too.
Male and female.
All in
right.
one.
It's both male and female. Well, what has the Doctor been turned into in Doctor Who? The Doctor is both male and female. The Doctor is the Baphomet now.
Huh. See, I never thought of that. That is right, though. Damn, dude, that's freaky.
Sexual nature is not important. It's both. That's been made very plain and clear. And what are they doing to all the kids with all the gender confusion? You don't have to decide whether you're male or female. You don't have to be anything if you don't want to. You can be anything. See, this is what's being done to us.
You could be a how many different genders are there? Does anybody know? Isn't there like hundreds of different genders they're saying now or something?
I think it was one number. I don't know. It's all ridiculous. There's boys and there's girls, and that's not to say that there aren't different sexualities and what people are attracted to. But generally speaking, you're one or the other unless you have some sort of strange genetic deformation.
Now, I want people to be really clear, or I want to be really clear with everybody. Just because I've read Wayne's book and I'm talking to Jason and all of this stuff doesn't mean that I believe in all of this as like a churchgoer would believe. But what I am telling you is that some of the stuff that they talk about on the Crow7 Radio, the stuff that I've read in this book, the Alchemical Tech Revolution, this stuff, you need to look at it. And that's all I'm going to say. You need to read it and then go back and check all of the occult stuff that we've talked about and some of the books that I've told you to read so you can understand this a little bit better. And then make up your mind about it, because I don't want to get in this war with people that at all. That's just not, I don't have the time or energy for it, but I will tell you that it's damn worth a look. And, I would love to have you and Wayne, on the show together. I mean, that would be pretty cool, actually.
I'm down.
Now, back to real quick though, the show Crow7 Radio. I've always wondered how you and Crrow came into, because we got a few minutes left on the program. How did you guys meet?
Let's see. It was a few years ago. I was still doing Secrets of Saturn. I was trying to get some good guests. I had heard Crrow on some other programs, thought he was very interesting, looked at his work. I reached out to him and another mutual friend of ours who happened to get back to me first, and that's James Alfred from Sage Sigma Blogspot. Awesome guy, super smart, very detail-oriented, really interesting stuff he does. But he got to me first, and we did a show together. We hit it off. We became friends, and he put a good word into me for me to Crrow. Crrow came on, did a show with me. Then I suggested we do a Lunar Wave Roundtable with two other people who had also captured the Lunar Wave. Crrow, of course, is the one that did it first as far as making it worldwide. And we got Randy from Houston, who is now also a very close friend of mine. And we also had on a young man who had just recently filmed it at the time. And we did a Lunar Wave Roundtable on Secrets of Saturn. Well, shortly thereafter, Crrow was starting his own podcast. And a few episodes in, he asked me to come on to do a reverse interview style because he liked my hosting capabilities. And he said, I want you to think about questions that my listeners would want to know answers to that perhaps I haven't addressed or maybe haven't even thought of. I said, okay, I could do that. That one went really well. Then he liked the way that went, and then he asked me to do another show and then another show, and eventually, and not very far into it, it just turned into, hey, why don't you just do this with me full time? This really works well. We balance each other. And I was like, I agree, totally. So that's it. It just morphed into it's all his branding, if you want to call it that, Crow777, but the show is really about both of our perspectives coming together and presenting subject matter. And for the most part, we agree on everything because we're looking at the same research stuff. Some of our more esoteric things, I think, might be a little different in viewpoints, but for the most part, he and I are really good friends and see things pretty much spot on.
Yeah, that's cool. I've had that happen to me in my life. I think when you start doing, and I'll tell this, give advice for people. When you start finding your bliss, when you start finding your passion and you actually start doing it, it's funny how certain people come into your life. The people that need to come into your life, they just do. And whether it's via the internet or whatever it is, they just start coming into your life, which would be my next question for you, Jason, is, there are people out there that talk about this good versus evil dichotomy. The good and evil are just a misunderstanding, right? And this is something that's always bothered me too. Like, it's not, they say this is what they say. Good and evil is not real. It's really more about being more conscious and aware, kind of like an animal. A smart animal doesn't do certain things, but a dumb animal will do all kinds of heinous crimes and stuff. So it's really just knowledge. And there's nothing there's really no good and evil. That scared the hell out of me the first time I saw it. Now, with that being said, with the kind of stuff that you talk about and that Wayne talk about, I have to feel like that there really is good and evil. Like, I know there's really good and evil, but I think that agenda is being pushed on us underneath all of this, and people don't really see it. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where it's kind of like, it's consciousness. It's just consciousness and awareness, man. You know, I'm woke. It's really not good and evil. It's just perception. And I'm like, whoa, where are you going with that? You know?
Yeah, I know what you're saying, and I think that's the Luciferian agenda, or part of it anyway.
That would be the real Luciferian agenda, if there is one, right? Which I see other people using.
Philosophy. Maybe that'd be the better word to use. Part of the Luciferian philosophy. Yeah.
Right, because I see people that use the word Luciferian agenda also for, like, effect, you know, to keep you from.
That sounds dramatic, but I'm trying to. Because what you're saying is it's about awareness. Well, awareness and knowledge and all those things are kind of going hand in hand. So if you're saying it's really about perception, and Luciferianism is Lucifer let's go with the old stuff that Jordan Maxwell always says. Lucifer is the light bearer. That means light. You're seeking light, all that stuff. Freemasons are seeking light, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's a Luciferian philosophy. If all you're doing is talking about awareness and learning and all that, well, that sounds like a Luciferian philosophy to me.
Yep. It's what people call what's been known as the left-hand path, right? Where you just understand the fundamental laws and the fundamental teachings of the esoteric and occult stuff, and you understand that, okay, these are laws and this is consciousness and blah, 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 but they don't really look at the good and evil thing. They kind of toss it to the side. That whole idea that there is a loving force in the universe behind all of this, which when I ask them about those types of things, and believe me, I've met people that talk about like stuff like this. They've tried to come on the show. When I ask them, I say, do you believe that there is a loving force in the universe? Do you believe in love? They stumble and fall. That's pretty damn scary, man. And I think that that's being pushed pretty quick. And I don't know if anybody sees it, but I do.
Yeah, I think that's all part of the whole Luciferian philosophy, whether they realize it or not. It seems like it to me anyway.
They say this. Here's what they say, okay? And I don't want to freak anybody out. They say love is a trick of the brain.
It's just chemicals, and I know what they are. Doesn't Rick Sanchez say that in the Rick and Morty cartoon?
Yeah, that's how they want to explain it. Love is just a trick of the mind, and it's not real. Like it's all science. I'm thinking, Jesus, man, this is bad.
At all. No.
Bad.
Love is the answer, and unconditional love is true godliness, in my opinion.
But yeah, for sure, I can tell that you believe in that, and I'm glad you said that, man. There's this thing that I've called interfacing, which people say are UFOs and aliens, and even paranormal activity. Sometimes when we see apparitions that aren't there, things like that. I think if you guys read The Alchemical Tech Revolution, I think Wayne's theory on what's really going on with that might make more sense than anything. Like, I don't know why we're not questioning more about CERN. Like, it's people bring it up all the time. Well, yeah, CERN, they're smashing atoms and stuff, but they don't realize nobody really knows what the hell they're doing for real, man. You know, like, do you
Why
have
is there
a clue?
a statue to Shiva out front?
Right. Do you? I mean, you're a pretty smart fellow. You do a lot of research. Do you know everything they're doing there?
No. And I mean, generally speaking, I would understand at least the basis of what they're going after. And they're supposedly seeking the God particle. But a lot of this actually sounds kind of like Star Trek technobabble. They're just kind of saying things. I think there's way more going on there than they're really letting out. I don't know exactly what it is, and do I think it's causing the Mandela effect and shattering the universe and all that? I don't know, man. You can't prove anything like that. No one on the inside is talking. What I can tell you is they do ceremonies occult ceremonies, and there is indeed a statue to Shiva out front. Like, why would these diehard egghead physicist nerdballs be all obsessed with occult figures? I mean, come on, man, this should tell you a lot.
It should tell you something strange is going on, for real. And Saturn, this is something else. I wanted to ask you this at the beginning of the show. Why did you name that first podcast you got The Secrets of Saturn, or the Cult of Secrets of Saturn, right?
Yeah, well, I used two things that I came up with a few years ago, because all of the powers that be, or the elite, or whatever the hell you want to call them, seem to all be obsessed with the lovely ringed planet Saturn. And of course, there's a lot into that a lot of different researchers have tried to explain over the years. I decided that I wanted to expose that in the easiest way possible. So I had the notion that I'll call my music project, any music I put out, I'll go under Cult of Saturn. So if somebody happens to hear one of my rock and roll songs that they're like, oh, that's a pretty good song, I wonder who does that, Cult of Saturn. If they throw Cult of Saturn into a search engine, they're going to find a hell of a lot more than a rock band that sounds like it's just got a trippy 60s name. So that was an underhanded little trick of mine. And I called the podcast Secrets of Saturn because I want to expose the secrets of Saturn. It's the podcast is for the direct hit you over the head with the information. The music was, I put things in the lyrics and the way I put majors and minors together to steer emotions and things like that, to be like the subtle way of getting the information across.
That's a good idea. I mean, I wish I would have thought of that.
And I really never got too far with the music side of it. I did release an EP a few years ago that you can hear if anybody wants to hear the kind of music I do. It's kind of like modernized 60s, 70s. You can hear the Pink Floyd influence and all that kind of music I love. You can hear it for free at Bandcamp. Just look up Cult of Saturn Bandcamp. You can hear all 6 tracks I released under that moniker. And I've got a ton more I've written that's kind of half done. And I'm actually looking to move soon, as soon as I can figure out where we're going to go to California. And I really want to desperately miss playing music.
You're really going to move out west, aren't you?
Yeah, well, that's where my significant other Rose is from. She's from Santa Barbara.
Nice.
So I've been looking at either Santa Barbara, or there's a little town there called Ojai, Ojai, that is very much an artist and musician's place. The people I've spoken to there all tell me the same thing, that that's where I belong, because they're all about spiritual awareness and high intellectualism and all that kind of thing. And it's expensive. So we're just trying to find something that'll work for our limited income. But we're going to achieve it. I know we're going to achieve it. I'm putting that intention out to the universe. We're going to get there.
I've got family out there in Santa Barbara, actually, that I don't talk to anymore, because they actually know some famous actors. Their daughter babysits for a famous actor. And back when I was trying to go to school and stuff, they told me that I needed to get rid of my accent. And they were going to pay for a coach to get rid of my accent because it was terrible, was what they told me. And I haven't talked to him since. So, but it is beautiful out there, though. It's a lot prettier than it is here. I mean, you're closer to home with me, so you understand all about the trees. I don't get to see the sky. I don't know actually where you live, but here in Arkansas, man, I don't get to see the skies like they do out west. I get so damn jealous of that, man.
Yeah, there's a lot of trees here. Now, I live in the Baton Rouge area. My favorite place I've ever been to, or at least one of the top few, is New Orleans. It's got its own vibe and its own look that I'm absolutely in love with, and I'll probably always love it. But the skies are generally not as open due to the weather, just, the location, all that sort of thing, as they are out west. The skies out there are stunning. I've been in the desert. I've been in Arizona. I've been all over the west there, and just gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. And that's where Crrow did a lot of his early filming, was in San Diego, actually, big open skies. And it's a lot different where he lives now up north, where it's just not the same.
Well, I wish you guys all the best, man. I know that this stuff is going to, once this movie comes out, and everybody sees it, if I know you, it's going to be awesome. And you're just going to keep getting better. And I hope that every one of you people that are listening right now, go check this movie out. And the cool thing is that I really dig is this isn't, I've talked to people that come on the show about doing movies, big time movies, Hollywood movies, Netflix stuff. And they try to do it with, producers and script writers and all of these people that come from Hollywood, where I've always thought, man, it was better to build it via the community, right? And that's what you did. And I think that's pretty impressive, man. A lot of people got behind you with this.
They did, and thank God they did, because I learned really quick just what things can cost. I mean, this whole movie was done on when they say shoestring budget, like literally shoestring budget. Thank God that the GoFundMe came through. And I do want to say thank you. She knows who she is. One person gave over half of the money.
I saw that.
In donations. I've reached. She's a listener. My girlfriend Rose recognized the name and said, "Hey, she sent questions in when we've done open submissions on our show." And she's like, I recognize that name. I was like, yeah, I thought I did too. And I've tried to reach out to her to talk to her. She said she had a story she wanted to tell, but she hasn't gotten back to me. So I don't know if you hear other things that I do, but please reach back out to me. And this can go for anybody too. If anybody wants to reach me, it's secretsofsaturn@gmail.com. But I would love it if this lady would get back in touch with me, because first of all, thank you for the incredibly generous donations. But I want to hear from you. I want to know what your story is. That's very interesting to me. But now we have the funding to do things like enter into all the film festivals I want to. Some of the traveling that's probably going to come in. Making Blu-rays. Once I get an accurate feel for how many we're going to need, that's a couple $1,000s just right there, just to have them printed to be able to sell to people. All these things take money, and it catches up to you really, really quick. So
well, I can't wait to see it.
Excuse me. Yeah, I'm dying to show it to you. Believe me, I put so much effort into it. It took me about 3 months to put this whole thing together, just because I got obsessive. I wanted to do it, and I wanted to do it well. So I learned how to color grade. I learned how to edit. Man, I can't wait to show you guys this thing, and all I can hope is that you love it as much as I do.
Yeah, I mean, I love everything about it, what you're doing, so I know it's going to be good. And this is something I told a lot of the listeners out there, man. If you find something you're passionate about or something you're into, go for it. Because literally, I'm not playing when I say that this 90% of this studio that I have now, which I'm very happy with, it was built by this audience, right? So it was paid for and funded by some of my most favorite people in the world, which are my listeners. And, I didn't have to go to some big radio studio or get a loan or take out or ruin my life. And you know what I mean? It's really cool to see when people come together on something, how things can manifest,
Well, just being able to have the money to rent out a theater, for instance, just something like that. I wouldn't have been able to afford that before, and now I have the power to do that. So once everything's ready to launch, we'll see just how far I get. And the traveling, like I want to be able to do that. I want to be able to go to conferences and things. Who people who want to have me on. If you're involved with conferences out there and you want me to come speak, you got it. Get a hold of me. We can do these things. I want to be part of the larger community. I want to do my best to help raise the awareness of humanity. That's what Crrow and I are about, is raising the awareness of humanity.
Well, listen, thanks for coming on the program and hanging out with us the entire show, which is rare for most guests. So that means, we had a good time, man. I really appreciate you coming on. It's been a blast, Jason.
It has. This whole time flew by, and thank you for having me. And again, if anybody wants to find us, it's Crow7radio.com. If you want to reach out to me, it's secretsofsaturn@gmail.com. Or if you have something specifically you wanted to talk to Crrow about, he's Crow777, CRROW 777 @gmail.com. We're open to hear from you, folks.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. All right, guys, we got to get out of here. That was Jason Lindgren from Crow777 Radio and Secrets of Saturn. Go check out Shoot the Moon movie. Put the links, and I will put the links in the show notes, but I also dropped them in the chat room so you can see the actual movie. Well, you're not going to see the whole movie, but you're going to see the teaser, and you'll see what it's about. That's enough. It's going to get you interested. I can't wait to see this movie when it comes out. And hopefully next time we do this, we'll have Wayne on with Jason so we can get into some of this alchemical tech revolution stuff and transhumanism, because I know you're interested in it. But we got to get out of here. And so I have to remind you that this show is produced by the Fringe FM and can't be syndicated or rebroadcast without written permission. And music was by Chronox, Kevin MacLeod, Space Station, Public Domain War Music, and our guitar man by Bundy. We'll see you guys next week. Stay tuned for the Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable if you're listening live. Good night, folks.
On this program do not necessarily reflect those of the Fringe FM, KTLK Digital Broadcasting, its sponsors, affiliates, or staff. Listener discretion is advised. We told you weeknights on the Fringe FM are now even better, and we mean it.
Do it live!
Where else can you hear the best shows and the best talent? Kick off your evening with our newest host, Alex Exum, live at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 Eastern. Hang out with me, Joe Roop, on Lighting the Void at 9 Pacific, midnight Eastern. Ryan Gable expands your mind on the Secret Teachings at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern. We're bringing the heat every single night. Fire it up, the Fringe FM.
Yahoy there. This is Gigi from Shift Happens. And holy shit, you're listening to KTLK, The Fringe FM. Hey, don't you dare turn that stuff.
The following program will follow the preceding program.